Welcome to the audio-visual counterattack. Welcome to the RazörForce Offensive. I am your intrepid host, Commissar Fist, joined by Mr. Terengel. Is he here?
Welcome, everyone.
Party compromat op, Mr. Terengel.
What?
And joined by the Politburo General, the Tactical Hobo, the
Soviet Union. I thought you guys broke up.
It's kind of like the Jerry Lee Lewis Dean Martin reunion. Wasn't really a fan of their original work. Not really looking forward to the new shit right now. Folks, it is time for an offensive. And speaking of which, look at the time. It is the nothingest of ever happens. People were actually freaking arrested. Pam Bondi actually doing her job for once, and it doesn't involve a bathroom stall and knee pads somehow. Folks, there were actual arrests, not Don Lemon, and everybody's kind of bitching about that. However, it's tough to be upset with one of the people who was arrested. Did you see the woke farmer guy?
Woke farmer.
Okay,
Farmer?
So you're not aware. That's perfectly fine. I'm going to go ahead and share that right now. In fact, let's go ahead and do it. His name was the Woke Farmer, and if you'll recall, he's a great big bearded bitch in a beanie. Stop you if you've heard this one before. For once, he doesn't have a podcast. Actually, I think he might. And he challenged Pam Bondi by name to arrest him. And so she took him up on it. Let me go ahead and there we are. There we are. I've got it, folks.
Wait, is this who I think it is? Is it the fucking bearded hippie guy that was screaming at the kids in the
Yes, it is.
Oh, I wasn't aware that's what he was called. Farmer?
Here we go. Woke farmer.
Yeah, him.
You want to come and arrest me? You want to come and give me charges? So be it.
It was at this moment he knew. He fucked up.
You know, Pam Bondi, you want to...
Yeah, fuck this guy.
This guy. We need a little context for those who do not have it just now. I think we've got some... Oh, here we go. I've got the footage, gang. I've got the footage. Here's a longer compilation. This piece of shit was just absolutely disgusting. Here we go.
Especially those ICE agents?
No. Yeah.
Well, no, they're terrorists. They're traitors.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for your service. I appreciate.
Today we had the honor to protest with Nikema
Thank you
Armstrong,
for your service.
Justice Network. Just like Jesus did, we went into that church and we flipped tables peacefully. Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Where are your people? Why are you not at Whipple every day fighting for the humanity, standing for our people? Where are you? You drink your coffee, you got your jewelry, you have your nice clothes, but what do you do? What do you do to stand for your Somali and Latino communities?
I'm not going to comment.
You have no comment. Exactly. As you can see, all these pretend Christians, all these comfortable white people who are living lavish, comfortable lives while children are dragged into concentration camps. You're living real life, nice lives with your lattes.
Concentration camps? Anybody want to comment on the Obama cages? Anybody? No?
Do absolutely nothing for your Latino and Somali brothers and sisters. You come here to a man wearing a suit as a preacher.
This is what I resent about it, and it's how you know it's astroturfed. There's no coherence to it. There's no specific grievance they're even protesting against. They just don't like Christians.
Yeah.
Right? Concentration camps. What the hell are you even talking about? If this bearded little Bolshevik really gave a shit about concentration camps, he wouldn't have supported lockdowns, which he absolutely fucking did, right? Yeah. Australia and the goddamn COVID camp, right?
Did Jesus wear a suit? Did Jesus profit off the words? No. Jesus would dine with immigrants. Do not touch me.
He walks into a room full of people wearing business casual and asks them if Jesus wore a suit. Okay.
Say it again and see what happens.
Hey, you can't. Don't do
You are a fake Christian. Why are you not standing with your Somali and Latino communities? Why do I not see you out at Whipple every day protesting this attack on humanity? Where are you? You're sinners. You're pretending to be Christians. But we know you live an easy life, don't you? A very easy life while people are starving.
Ironically, some of his talking points would have been similar. They would have period equivalents in the time of Jesus, but they wouldn't have been coming out of the mouth of Jesus. They would have been coming out of the mouths of the Pharisees and the Sanhedrin. Worldly works salvation would be the purview of the Pharisees. That would be a Pharisaic doctrine.
Before you unpause it,
What's up?
can we bring up the point here that why didn't he go into a mosque and say this? Why didn't he go into a Jewish temple and say
a synagogue or a mosque or barge? You want to be really, really brave? Barge into a Church of Scientology or some cult that's super locked down. You know what I mean?
Why is it
barge into your lefty, fluffy Unitarian church? Why didn't he show up to a super woke ELCA quote unquote Lutheran church where they got more pride flags than crosses up on the walls? We know why. Because this motherfucker, ultimately, he's married to the gospel of the world, right? Which is, again, this is the leftist form of works-based salvation. You say all of your shibboleths and you're led into lefty heaven.
People starve, live in real.
Sorry, did I cut you off, Taryn?
No. That was my point. Is like, why a church? Why a Christian church? Why not a synagogue? Why not a mosque? It's because he can get away with it. Because it's Minnesota. Because they hate Christians.
Yeah, because it's Minnesota. They were already lean blue. And then Obama, as we'll talk about, because there's an awful lot of people talking about the Somali refugee crisis. None of them know anything about Somalia. None of them know anything about the history that led up to this massive influx of refugees. I've touched on it here and there. We'll get a little bit deeper into it here today. But man, you're being let down by your podcasters, guys, because all you're seeing right now is Somalis. They're all liars. They're all shitbags. What you're not getting is, who are these Somalis? Why are they here? Why was there a sudden wave of migration? What are their political loyalties? What is their philosophy, if they even have one? Or are you so blinded by the nationality or whatever, all the internet memes, that you haven't even asked these questions? We're going to talk about this a little bit more, but this entire thing.
Children are dragged into concentration camps. You're all living real comfortable, aren't you? Shame on you. Do something. Stand with the Somalis. Stand with the Latinos. Quit ignoring this injustice. He wears a suit and tie, and he hangs out.
Well, he did, folks, rest easy tonight. He did find justice. So that's
dude. This guy is a total clown. He doesn't know anyone in that church. He doesn't know what they believe. Some of them might agree with
that's
them.
Beyond the dude. That's beyond his whole persona. Is I'm a lib woke military vet. The dude,
and another atheist who's going to go and criticize Christians about what we believe, right? Why aren't you doing Christian values that I don't believe in, right?
Yep. Why don't you have the worldly values that I hold? Not the Christian ones. Man, if you read the Bible and adhered by the dictums therein, you'd be the most controversial prick on planet Earth. Look at Charlie Kirk. Even Charlie Kirk was not completely in line with absolutely everything that was in the Bible, and look how controversial he was, right?
With Christy Nome, how is that a Christian? You're supposed to accept all immigrants, are you not? Why are you not going down to Whipple and joining us?
What verse is that?
Yeah, I was going to ask.
What verse in the Bible? Is that a book in the Apocrypha I haven't read yet? What exactly is that?
I must have missed that one.
Yeah. It's odd because I seem to remember, especially in the book of Kings, especially in Numbers, especially in the early part of the New Testament, I seem to remember there being entire groups of people expelled from Israel and forever forsworn from darkening its borders ever again. Strange. But folks, That's how we're starting off. He was arrested. Who else? Did you see who else was arrested? I believe like the big organizer behind the entire march. They were arrested. Sadly, not Don Lemon yet. We'll see. We'll see.
Apparently, a federal judge cleared him or said he couldn't be charged, wouldn't charge him or something like that.
Yeah, that's the thing that we're going to run into here. It's satisfying to see these guys led away and, clapped in irons, but we're still going to have to get this through a legal system that has been poisoned for decades upon decades. Trump did his damnedest. He swapped out a lot of these super activist judges during his first term, and he's done even more chipping away at that in his second, which by all rights is his third. But we're still going to have to get this through the legal system. How do you guys see that shaken out?
Well, yeah, I mean, it may or may not work, but we have the Supreme Court, at least sort of. I mean, I don't fully trust the Supreme Court. I don't think anyone else should either, but we'll see.
Nor do I. This has been a really, really hopping week. It's absolute lunacy. There's so much crap to get to. I guess I want to get to, before we move off of this Minnesota thing, I think I want to talk about more of the Minnesota. There's like the deflection, the constant deflection that has been happening in Minnesota right now, because that's obviously what we're witnessing right now. The stuff with the shooting, the stuff with all of that, all of this stuff takes a little over a week to organize. Wonder of wonders. It's extremely well organized. There's like branded official merch being handed out at these riots. And wouldn't you know, it all happens in the very same state where we just uncovered $9 billion in fraud. Wouldn't you know it? How convenient for everybody. How convenient for Tim Walz. I mean, Tim Walz is going to be a sacrificial lamb regardless. I think we all know. Tactical Hobo, you weren't on before. Where do you see the Tim Walz thing going in response to all this? Because he's already pretty much done. He was supposed to run. Do you think he still has hopes of running for Senate after all this?
Oh, no, definitely not. I heard that like some the Republicans in Minnesota want to like introduce impeachment, but I mean, I don't think they have the I don't think they can carry it out there. I don't really know exactly what the makeup is of the House there, but yeah.
It's been full court press ever since this Minnesota story was brought to the fore by Nick Shirley. Shout out to him. Did you watch both of his videos? I think he's done 2 or 3 videos now on all of this. Did both of you watch that? And his testimony, which we might get to here today if you guys want to watch it and just fume at the Democrats running interference for it. But did you guys watch the Nick Shirley stuff about the Minnesota fraud?
I watched the first video. I have not watched any follow-up videos though. What about you, Hobo?
Yeah, I think the same.
Okay. Well, let's check in on the mainstream media and see how they're attempting to spin it. Somali businesses struggle during Minneapolis ICE crackdown. That's how we're spinning it. Oh, mean old Nick Shirley uncovering billions in daycare fraud. How dare you hurt Minnesota businesses? You nasty, nasty. What was he called in Congress? I believe there was just congressional testimony. It was it Rankin, that scumbag with the hair plugs? Called him a right-wing influencer. Right-wing Twitter influencer or whatever he called him. Anyways, rows of businesses stood shuttered inside a sprawling complex of Somali businesses on a recent afternoon. Carmel Mall in South Minneapolis contains more than 100 small businesses and suites offering everything from clothing and food to insurance and accounting services. On Thursday, the noisy hallways inside lay quiet. Wow, like a Minneapolis daycare, really. Save for occasional chatter between neighboring vendors. Yeah, amid a din of clicks, I'm sure. The smell of fried food still wafted from the bakeries. The central heating hummed. And the sound of Quran recitation.
Okay.
apparently from some shops. How did I miss that the first time I read this article? I was breezing through it. How did I miss that? The sound of many a prayer mat being laid on the floor and pointed toward Mecca. The clitorectomists were humming, but many sellers sat alone in their clothing stores waiting to sell their togas, waiting for the occasional customer to walk by. Everyone's afraid of federal immigration agents, business owners said. Sellers and customers, citizens and non-citizens. Some don't bother opening shop because they aren't expecting customers. Why does that sound familiar, huh, guys? It's been like this for 3 weeks now, said Abi Wahid, who works at his mom's convenience store in the mall. Everywhere, it's all been closed up. All the stores. Carmel Mall is an economic hub for the area's Somali population, which is the largest in the U.S., but it also features housing, a mosque, and Quran classes, serving as a robust community center for the area. Now, gang, with the numbers that we're talking about with this fraud, how likely is it that you're in the incredibly insular Somali community in Minneapolis and are not at least dimly aware of how people are supporting themselves in your region?
Yeah, they all know what's going on.
I'll give you a for instance. I got a grandpa, originally from Wisconsin, came out here to Phoenix. I've probably told you this before, but he looked like Fat Tony from Simpsons. He's always had the open shirt and the gold chains and the dark glasses, and he had the thick Italian by way of Kenosha accent, right? Right? That kind of.
Forget about it.
Right? The thick gold watches, drove around in a freaking Beamer. Did the family not? He ran a landfill business.
Oh my God.
Ooh.
Family not put two and two together. You know what I mean? Like, how retarded did we have to be? We got it. At a certain point, we got it, gang. Please cut it out with these crocodile tears. You people could not have lived and subsisted in this community and not known what was going on. What's your read on this, guys?
I think they do a lot better in Somalia. I mean, if the business is hurting here, why don't they go there and they can sell RPGs for $20 a pop, you know?
Yes, with a side of hummus, right? So who's struggling here? The real businesses or the ones that are about as real as Kendall Jenner's ass? That's my question. Because you hear about these strip malls and you hear them describe them, and you guys watched the Nick Shirley video. There were entire little strip malls and buildings and whatnot, and they were all filled with daycares, and none of them were open. They all had blacked out windows. There was just a husband and wife. By the way, is that not something you asked yourself as you were watching those videos? Do they live on site? Like, what's actually going on there? Because every single one, they had blacked out windows, and there was usually like a husband and a wife, and that's it. Maybe some extended relatives. Were they living there illegally, like a residence?
What it reminded me of as I was watching the Nick Shirley video, it reminded me of drug houses. Now, follow me on this. When a cartel moves into an American city or neighborhood, they have these shitty houses, whatever, either it's like in a mini mall or an actual house. Windows are all covered, bars everywhere, and there's always someone there to stand guard.
You know what else it sounds like? You know what else it sounds like, brother? And I have some personal experience with this. Hobo? You remember the story I told you years ago about the time I was homesick from school and the sheriff's department pulled up to my neighbors and all of a sudden Mexicans went scattering in all directions? And it turned out that I had been living next to an illegal alien safe house for months.
Oh, yes. I remember that house, in fact.
Yeah. That's what it sounds like to me. Blacked out windows.
Sounds like.
People coming for all hours of the night. There's always somebody standing watch. That's what it sounds like to me. Are they trafficking people from Somalia through that, or from other locations? Who even knows? Gang, guys, this whole thing, you know, I'm not the boy who cried psyop. You are not watching Candy Kong calling Charlie Kirk a time-traveling trans-dimensional trans person here. I'm generally pretty even keel about this stuff, despite the name of the show. But these protests in Minneapolis are the fakest shit since Shatner's hair. From the moment they started. Are you guys on board with me on this? From the moment I saw the protests, and it took about a grassroots protest doesn't take over a week to assemble so Soros can bus in the Bolshevik brigade. An organic insurgency isn't handing out official branded merchandise from the Communist Party USA, a foreign-funded organization, I hasten to add, founded by the Soviet Union and funded by them till like 1989, after which it has ever since been bankrolled by who, guys? Beijing, freaking China. Like I said, me oh my, but ain't it convenient that all these violent, conspicuously well-organized distractions just happen to materialize just as we uncover $9+ billion fraud in the very same state where they happen to be occurring in large numbers. What fortune for the democratically controlled state of Minnesota. Fuck the fucking shooting, and fuck the libs, and fuck the lulberts who pretend to give a shit about it. This fucking fraud funded a Somali terrorist group that has authored the murders of hundreds of thousands of human beings under far less flattering circumstances than that bleach blonde bull dyke, might I add. Fuck you until you're ready to talk about the fucking fraud. Fuck that shit. Anyway, I have seen these called like domestic terrorists, but as I pointed out on social media, you are all the way wet on this one. This is a foreign-funded insurrection. I actually want to show you guys something now, if I can find it. Here we go. Spotted organizing tonight's protests in Minneapolis, the literal Communist Party. Here's the pin they were handing out to match the flags they're waving. Twin Cities Club, that would be CPUSA. And if you watched my Hollywood Was Always Red video and my McCarthy, Martyred by Marxism video, you know all about the history of that organization. Founded originally at the Soviet consulate in San Francisco by Soviet agents, which is funny. They were on the opposite coast, but the CPUSA winds up being founded in New York, I think. And they were funded to the tune of several millions of dollars every single year, right up until Perestroika and the fall of the Berlin Wall. So this is a foreign-funded communist organization. We don't, for all intents and purposes, in America, have a domestic communist organization. We only have foreign ones. So this is what you need to understand about what you're watching in Minnesota. If they're part of this organizing, then that's it. We basically no longer have disorganized, non-communist domestic protest movements. Instead, we have shit like, what's the name of it? There's been so many of these alphabet agencies, I can't even remember. The Answer Coalition. Have you heard of the Answer Coalition, guys?
No. What is that?
The Answer Coalition, whose president, and I remember this name, Brian Becker, days after declaring a national day of protest in Minneapolis, went ahead and popped on to Chinese state media for a complimentary interview that was in all likelihood booked weeks in advance. Ain't that just the coinkiest of dinks, guys? And in case you were wondering how big a whore for the Chinese Brian Becker is, this is one of the main guys organizing these protests. Here is a clip from 4 years ago that I already have here, where he goes ahead and fillets them to completion.
I mean, the Chinese have adopted the principles of multilateralism. They're trying to demonstrate not only by their very growing financial contribution, but by the presence of peacekeepers, which is, as the piece mentioned, both dangerous and necessary in different parts of the world.
This guy presents as a foreign journalist with an objective view of China. On the down low, he's actually a protest organizer, in all likelihood being paid by China, who's directly involved in puppeteering the protests in Minneapolis. Again,
China's clearly
No
trying to
domestic
be
communist
sort of
organization.
the model for what it means to be a major
Here, by the way, he's arguing for their restoration of their lawful
power, a country that really doesn't need multilateralism
UN
in
seat.
one sense. It doesn't need to be having peacekeepers deployed in different parts of the world, but it's trying to demonstrate that it really is a guardian of the UN's basic founding charter. The irony here is on this 50th anniversary, which was a very joyous occasion in October 1971, for the previous 22 years, as a consequence of US policy, China was denied its rightful seat both in the General Assembly and at the Security Council. And even in 1971,
This is the guy. This is one of the guys organizing these. This is one of the Fidel filleting fucksticks organizing the Minneapolis protests. Sorry, I want to get that right.
Just hearing the Chinese rightful place.
Yep.
Oh, God.
If you watched my McCarthy Martyred by Marxism video, the best possible analog to this would be this guy's basically the modern day reincarnation of Dr. Owen Lattimore of the Institute of Pacific Relations, a Western mouthpiece tacitly on the payroll of Beijing, paid to sell out his own soil for a social credit score. That's who this guy is right here. That's what's in back of these protests. And China have both a domestic and a foreign motive for funding it. In America, the cause is socialist subversion. In Somalia, the cause is regaining power after their favored fucking dictator was thrown out in the early 90s. Did you guys see my tweet about some of the background behind the refugees in Somalia and the political turmoil that preceded that?
The specific tweet?
Don't believe I did.
The long and short of it was I was trying to impress. It's not just a social or cultural peculiarity that predisposes Minnesota Somalis to fraud. No one in all this discussion, none of the podcasters with gajillions of viewers and whatever, that certainly none of the mainstream journalists seem to be asking the pertinent question of why are these particular refugees here? And the answer is that many were socialists who supported a shitbag dictator who was ousted in 91. They too are socialist shitbags. They were shitbags back home. That's why they had to leave. They are now fleeing the vengeful warlords who supplanted Stalin with a suntan back in the day. And this is also, by the way, why they are funneling money that is stolen from Minnesota to Al-Shabaab. Those are Islamo-socialists, basically. I mean, there's a lot of socialism in the Islamo-fascist community, basically, who they're hoping they will drive the warlords out. In fact, right now, Al-Shabaab are in the middle of a renewed offensive in Somalia, trying to drive those very warlords out. They are fleeing a famine, too, which was caused by the socialist dictator who was thrown out in 91, and which has recurred every 5 or so fucking years thanks to local warlords remaking the Marxist mistakes of the prick who preceded them. Each major wave of Somali migration to Minnesota has been concomitant with a fucking famine. The early 90s, the early aughts, and finally from 2010 to 2014 under old bi-curious Obama. This is also the kind of shit pricks like Tim Pool aren't talking about because they're too busy sending a pan-faced redheaded hag out to fluff Fuentes to completion. You will receive the quality of punditry that you support, stupid. It's not that hard to look this shit up. Why the fuck does nobody know anything about this? Why does nobody know why these people are here? Why does nobody know how that connects back to Somalia and why this money would wind up in the pockets of Al-Shabaab? Sorry, I had to go off on a little bit of a rant there, but were you guys aware of like any of, I mean, I know, Hobo, you and I have talked many, many times about how Obama basically shipped those refugees in just to turn Minnesota blue. That was his motive. But their motive for leaving is their political refugees. Shoot, patient zero. Look no further than Ilhan Omar. Do either of you know about the history of Ilhan Omar?
Yes, she's got some suspicious relatives, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So I just talked about the shitbag dictator who was ousted in 91. jumped on over to, I think, Ohio, where, by the way, in case you're curious, he got involved in a mass daycare and welfare scam. Interesting. Kind of a follow the leader situation. But I think it was her father or uncle, I think it was her father, was a general in that particular socialist shitbag dictator's government. So when he was ousted, she's a creature of privilege, right? This is not some girl who fled persecution or rape gangs or whatever. No. She was a privileged pinko princess who had to leave because now the warlords were in power and they were enacting vengeance on everybody who had been allegiant to the socialist dictator who was ousted in 91. That's what this is. That's what this is right here. Any thoughts on all of that and where you think maybe all of this will lead when it's all said and done? Because, dude, I said 9+ billion. The reason I said 9+ billion in fraud has been uncovered is because it seems like every other day there's more uncovered. We're up into the double digits in terms of the billions of fraud, if I'm not mistaken. How high do you think this goes, guys?
Well, I would honestly say that after hearing all that and having all the pieces put together, it's pretty obvious. I would even accuse Obama of absolutely knowing what he was doing. Bringing people like Ilhan Omar in, bringing those specific Somalians in after those shitbags in Somalia got dethroned. I think that it's pretty obvious that maybe, tinfoil hat here, but maybe the fraud was the point of it all, to send it back to Somalia to support Al-Shabaab and whatnot.
Could be entirely possible. Again, they want a socialist government, communist government, whatever, installed in Somalia. That's what they used to have that. They lost that in the early 90s. Bill Clinton started bringing them in droves. By the end of the 90s, we had the first big wave of Somali migration. In the mid-2000s, again, each time famine is used as pretext, but can you really call it famine when it is, without exception, man-made? It's Marxian man-made. It's shitty Marxist policies leading to a famine. Stop me if you've heard this one before, but in Chinese, right? So every single time famine was used as the excuse. There was always a political motive. But if we want to jump down into the distraction for a moment, we just had all the bullshit about the bull dyke getting shot by the ICE agent and all of that. One of the things that bugged me about that and still bugs me to this day is we saw the version of that story where they get shot before they hurt anyone. What happens if they never open fire? How does that story end? And how would the left have reacted to it? Actually, before I even move on to this story, speculate, guys. How would the left, if that woman slammed the gas pedal and wound up, God forbid, hurting someone or killing someone, how does the left react to that very same story that they're now pretending they're organically protesting about?
Dude, if the ICE agent was killed, they would be cheering. They would all be cheering. And it's absolutely infuriating. These people are absolute just street communists, man. They don't have any principles beyond advocating for socialism and communism. That's it. Everything they do is a means to that end.
As somebody has said before, I'm sure many people have said before, they're not upset. They're not genuinely upset that there's, these ICE are bullies. They're tyrants. No, they're upset that they aren't the tyrants, that they don't have the power, that they want that ICE agent to die that day.
Yep, absolutely. They want, screw ICE. They just be using a different agency, right? They want their own shock troops. They want their very own shock troops. I remember back before Jack Posobiec blocked me for absolutely no reason, I was in DMs with Jack Posobiec, and we were talking about, what is the long-term strategy for Democrats? And we both agreed they want a national federal police force. It's been a massive item on their wish list for a long, long time. That's one of the reasons Heck, that's one of the
They were
reasons we're
talking
talking
about
about these police brutality cases. That's why they went after Derek Chauvin. The whole point was to undermine the confidence in local law enforcement so we can move toward a federal law enforcement system.
Well, of course, everyone remembers Obama talking about, we got to have a civilian national security force that's just as big as the military, just as well funded.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure I remember Biden during the Biden admin. Didn't he even talk about this, like wanting a national police force?
Yeah. Yes. They forwarded that a number of times. You know, they'll walk up to the precipice of it. It's kind of like when Hillary was broaching the subject of just mass censorship of the internet. She would just sort of obliquely reference to, oh, someday someone's going to have to deal with that problem. Oh, yeah, some very smart people are going to deal with that, right? They walk up to the precipice of it. Of course, the implication is they'll be the smart people dealing with it. That's always how it ends up. But if you're wondering how the situation might have ended up, we got a preview. Out in California, I think it was, shots fired as criminal illegal alien weaponizes vehicle and rams law enforcement, injuring officer. We basically got to see what would have happened, folks. Ramming law enforcement. Fuck, it's California. I thought only the taxpayers were supposed to get rammed. But shots fired. These dangerous attempts to evade arrest have surged since sanctuary politicians, including Governor Newsom, have encouraged illegal aliens to evade arrest and provided guides advising illegal aliens how to recognize ICE, block entry, and defy arrest. By the way, that's been happening forever. Hobo, you remember when we were first starting out doing, radio shows way back in the day, talking about President Vicente Fox at the time, Mexican President Vicente Fox, having manuals printed out for illegal aliens, how to cross the border, how to evade border patrol, where the wells were, right? Once you get to America, here's how you avoid immigration and nationalization. Here's how you avoid authority. You remember that, dude?
Oh, absolutely. Good old Vicente Fox. Who could forget him?
Yeah.
Mexico was benefiting for years off of immigration, man. Illegal immigration. Of course, they wanted them all here, They were getting tons of money from it.
Absolutely. It's a cottage industry. I mean, remittances from Mexico. In fact, wasn't it? I forget what they were disagreeing about. Trump had an issue with Mexican President Scheinbaum. He had an issue with that socialist sea hag, and she was standing firm for a minute. And then Trump said, okay, we'll just ban all remittances to Mexico, meaning people who come over to the American side of the border and then send money back to Mexico. He was going to ban all wire transfers from Mexico. And suddenly she was like, oh, I yield. It's okay. I forget what it was about. It might have been over the Venezuelan drug boats. I can't remember. This was relatively recently. But if you want to know how much money that makes for Mexico, look no further than that situation. Taryn, do you want to read this, or can you?
I absolutely can. Do you want me to share the screen so I can read it, or you just want me to read it on my side?
Sure. Go ahead and share it yourself.
Share.
All right. There we go.
Alrighty. Shots fired as criminal illegal alien weaponizes vehicles and rams law enforcement, injuring officer. These dangerous attempts to evade arrest have surged since sanctuary politicians, including Governor Newsom, have encouraged illegal aliens to evade arrest and provided guides advising illegal aliens how to recognize ICE, block entry, and defy arrest. A federal law enforcement officer was injured Wednesday in California when a criminal illegal alien from El Salvador allegedly rammed officials with his car, prompting shots to be fired. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security says at 7:05 a.m. local time, DHS law enforcement officers were conducting a targeted operation in Compton, California, to arrest a
how wild does this happen? Dude, you remember the cliche about Compton was nothing but black people.
Yeah, once upon a time.
Yeah, once about a time. Now we're talking about El Salvador immigrants and whatever. Dude. Talk about your organized demographic shift. No accident to that.
To arrest a violent criminal illegal alien from El Salvador, William Eduardo Moran.
Moran
Carballo, who is involved in a human smuggling operation and
This
has
is a human trafficker.
Yes, absolutely. Worst of the worst. And has 2 prior arrests for inflicting corporal injury on a spouse or cohabitant. An immigration judge issued him a final order of removal in 2019.
2019.
And this scumbag has been here for 6 years now.
Yep.
Longer than he should have. In a dangerous attempt to evade arrest, the criminal illegal alien weaponized his vehicle and rammed law enforcement. Fearing for his life and safety, an agent fired defensive shots. The criminal illegal alien was not hit and attempted to flee on foot. He was successfully apprehended by law enforcement. The illegal alien was not injured, but a CBP officer was injured.
This is an exact inversion of Minneapolis. An exact inversion. So this is the ideal situation that lefties wanted. The ICE agent gets hit, illegal alien, or the driver in this case, not so much. Hey guys, we have our first guest, by the way, here on the RazörForce Offensive. I've invited them, and since we're talking about China, and we're going to talk about China even more, because there's another major story about China here today, I figured we'd talk to an expert, my favorite China-related YouTube channel. It's Chris Chappell from China Uncensored.
Howdy.
Thanks for joining us here today. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Yeah, great to be here.
Welcome.
Yeah. So we've been talking about a lot. We've actually been talking not just about the Somali protests in Minneapolis and all of that. We've been talking about China's stake in some of it, their stake in the Somali regime, some of the past with the socialist regime that was ousted in 91, and some of the funding that goes from China to the CPUSA, who are organizing many of these. They've taken an active role in some of these protests. So I'm really, really glad to have you here, because I'd love to get broader context on all of this, and I'm sure you've got a thought or two.
Oh, yeah. Have you guys talked about Neville Roy Singham yet?
No. We talked about, who did we talk about? Chris Becker.
Okay.
Chris Becker, the organizer of one of these major protests. So the Answer Coalition, which is one of many commie groups linked to the CPUSA and thereby indirectly to the CCP. But please regale us, sir.
Oh, it was Singham. So I did an episode about him recently. Yeah,
Neville Singham is the guy in South America, correct? Who was behind funding a lot of the protests, especially out in California. The No King stuff. That's what he was behind, correct?
Yeah, he was also funding a lot of the pro-Palestine protests that were happening at Colombia last year.
Right.
But also, after the Maduro thing happened, there was a group called the People's Forum that was, protesting against, Trump fulfilling what the Biden warrant. And People's Forum gets their funding from Neville Roy Singham.
We got honeypots all around for you, by the way.
Oh, awesome. Thanks, guys. Thanks.
For those not yet apprised, maybe.
I just turned it on. Yeah.
Like virtually anybody on YouTube who has ever said a saucy word or not voted Democrat, China Uncensored has been brutally deboosted by the algorithm. We, of course, would not know anything about that here on this channel. And so he tried to get around that by, hey, basically through comments, you can kind of get around that. The more comments that you have, the more it gets recommended by the algorithm. At least this week, that's how it worked. And so everybody posted honeypot emojis in order to boost your videos. Do I have it exact?
Yeah, mainly. Like the idea is there was the whole meme about Xi Jinping being compared to Winnie the Pooh.
Yep.
This
Oh,
began back in
bother.
Obama's day.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
Did you see Chris Chappell, by the way, the story that apparently 9 in 10 Chinese own their own home?
Oh, yeah, that's totally accurate. Did you know that most Chinese people support their government too?
It's true. And 10 out of 10 people surveyed were not shot.
I can't complain.
Literally.
Yes. That's a fine caliber of research. But
Yeah.
no.
Well,
yeah.
hey, I mean, there was that it was published by MIT, this story where they were the conclusion was, and this was in MIT, that China is not a hostile expansionist power. They're inward looking. They base this off of Chinese state-run media.
Of course.
Go to the source.
Well, we were just showing that Becker, this organizer of the Answer Coalition, he was the big organizer of the protests out in Minneapolis. The very same day he called for a national day of protest in Minneapolis, he shows up on Xinhua, on Chinese state media that day in an appearance that I'm sure was not booked weeks in advance. He's immediately on there talking to
the level of psychological operations going on. Like normies aren't prepared to deal with it. Yeah, I'm not prepared to deal with it.
Well, shoot, Taryn, you want to talk about the new the money laundering stuff? Do you have that story?
Absolutely.
Here we go.
United States accuses Chinese network of laundering more than 27 million for Mexican cartels.
Wow, 200 years later, the Chinese are still doing everyone's laundry, huh?
Ooh.
The U.S. Department of Justice filed charges this week against Yan Lin, a 41-year-old man accused of being part of a complex Chinese money laundering network used to repatriate drug trafficking profits to Mexico. The formal indictment states that Lin and his accomplices allegedly facilitated the transfer of tens of millions of dollars obtained from the sale of fentanyl, cocaine, and methamphetamine in the United States back to Mexico through an opaque financial chain involving cash purchases of electronic goods and shipments to Asian countries.
Right. You and I have gone back and forth a little bit, Chris, about the whole thing with China agreeing to add fentanyl to the controlled chemicals and then kind of getting around it by trafficking precursors. And then I think after that, they agreed, we'll add some of the precursors to controlled chemicals, which kind of culminated in what we just saw in Venezuela, where Venezuela were kind of used as a proxy to traffic that stuff. Do you want to give like a brief rundown to the audience of like just a preamble of what exactly happened there with China and fentanyl? Because I did a little video on this about all the Chinese nationals being apprehended at the southwestern border with fentanyl. But you want to give kind of a brief primer?
Sure. So, I mean, it begins with the Chinese Communist Party considers itself at war with the United States, right, but it knows it can't win a military confrontation. So now the two PLA colonels, unrestricted warfare, big part of that was drug warfare. So the Chinese state subsidizes companies to make fentanyl precursors, ships those to the United States. It kills about 70,000 Americans a year. That's more than the entirety of the Vietnam War happening per year. Mm-hmm. So this is a great way for the Chinese Communist Party to kill Americans. And, this article focused on Mexico, but the real entry point is our friends to the north in Canada.
Yes. Which makes a lot of sense. I mean, gosh, have you ever been to Canada, man?
Me? No.
Yeah. So I know a lot of people in Canada, whatever. I know some people in Victoria and Calgary and whatever. And there are so many Chinese connections there, both to government and in the population, and I'm sure you're well aware of that, to the point where, gosh, in some of the major cities, Vancouver, I think even Victoria, street signs are in English and not French, the other language of Canada, Chinese, Mandarin. Freaking English and Mandarin. The street signs are over there. So they're pretty well coiled around the local apparatus there in many of these cities. And certainly, basically, Canada's a vassal of China at this point.
Yeah, it's not just fentanyl. The go-to source for this is a guy named Sam Cooper. He's done a lot of work on this, but essentially the Chinese Communist Party has turned Canada into its drug and money laundering capital of the world. The CCP, or Chinese triads connected to the CCP, are basically handling all of the criminal money laundering globally. Like, we're even talking like Italian mafia. They're handling the money.
Right.
And a lot of it is coming in and out of Canada. It's the epicenter of it.
Yeah. You want to keep going on that a little bit further, Taryn, and actually we have a sort of corollary story to go along with this.
According to the case filed in federal court in Cincinnati between 2022 and 2024, Mexican drug trafficking groups hired this organization to handle the cash generated from drug sales within U.S. territory. The procedure described includes handing over large amounts of physical cash to third parties who use the funds to purchase electronic products. Once the receipt of these goods was confirmed, payment was sent to Mexico through mirror transactions after deducting a commission. Partial records indicate that at least $27.4 million in cash was moved through this network.
And I've seen people who are like, that's all, 27 million, really? It's like, yeah, but this is the tip of the iceberg. Like, this is actually indicia of a broader operation. If this is happening just through Mexico along just this vector, how many other vectors is this happening along, with how many other industries, with how many other goods that are purchased and then laundered, right? Would you concur with that assessment, or do you have any additional insight on that, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, the scope of this is enormous. And the problem with fentanyl is that you can always slightly change the ingredients just enough to get around international laws and regulations. International law is dead, by the way, if you hadn't heard.
Yeah.
And this is all Trump's fault, that he drove everyone into China's arms.
It wasn't the charm offensive.
You're looking forward to taking a trip to Trump Tower, Greenland?
Oh, yes. You mean St. Luthersburg. Yes. I'm looking forward to Greenland being a 50. I mean, we've talked about this a little bit. I was pretty early on pointing out that it's not about Greenland. In Greenland, I saw the Lotus Eaters having a meltdown about this. I think a lot of people are missing the forest for the trees on this. It has nothing to do with Greenland. It's the Northwest Passage is the issue. Yeah. Russia and China, not just giving it the hairy eyeball, they are eye-fucking it. They are passing ships through to traffic God knows what, military equipment, whatever. And Denmark aren't holding up their end of the bargain. Denmark were supposed to spend something like 2% of GDP on military. They're spending barely over 1%, something like that. They're not spending the amount they're supposed to. And who knows, maybe Denmark were paid off. I know China paying off a European power, it would never happen, but they're kind of looking the other way on it. And so Trump is he was browbeating them. That's my read on it. If he could get them to satisfy their obligations, he was happy to allow them to have Greenland. But failing that, we're going to take control of it because we're going to have control of the Northwest Passage. The same reason he went after the Panama Canal and Gulf of America and all of that. Guys, it's not about Gulf of America. It's not about it's about those trade routes. It's about controlling those crucial vectors. Any read on that?
I don't know, man. I think the EU's got it covered. They sent like 30 guys there to defend Greenland.
They were 30 unarmed guys.
Yes.
Yeah.
They were trained in Steven Seagal Aikido, though. So they're good.
Beautiful Drinker just had a great one on Steven Seagal.
There's a lot of great ones on Steven Seagal, none of which are named Steven Seagal. Yes.
Yeah, this is the thing I have with the show right now. I have to talk about things like in Greenland and Panama Canal, and sometimes people are like, we're following you for China, and it's like, as soon as you move out of just like the very simple, like, oh look, China built crappy infrastructure and it's collapsing, as soon as you move past that just very shallow level, just everything ties back to China
in some way or indirectly to some pseudo ally of China, because China, communist power only really has pseudo allies in a way, but you have some kind of vassal that's connected to, like Venezuela or the like. Did you see after freaking how long of pleading for direct financial aid, China's finally going to save Cuba with a few bags of rice?
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yes, that just came out today. And the propaganda apparatus was out there. China, look, they're helping them while the U.S. is starving them.
Oh, which the whole sanctions thing, people have that totally wrong with Cuba.
Yeah. I didn't hit us with that, because I hear a lot of shallow analysis on it, even on the AirSats right.
Oh, I did an episode about this on America Uncovered a couple of years ago, but I think still Canada is like a major trading partner. It's not like Cuba is completely cut off from the rest of the world. A ton of money goes to Cuba from the United States. Usually it's people sending money to their families that then the government gets their hands on. But so it's definitely, I mean, they pulled the same thing with Venezuela. The only reason socialism wasn't working there was because of U.S. sanctions, not because Chavez nationalized the oil industry and they had 3 times the workers producing a third of the oil.
Yeah, exactly. You see that it's always part of that dichotomy where it's American imperialism, and meanwhile communism prescribes its imposition across the entire world, right? There's no version of communism that isn't, by their definition, colonialist. They just don't call it colonialism. They call it workers of the world uniting. Right? That's the constant double standard that happens there. Speaking of which, we had another story here. This is from Breitbart, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but let me see if I can grab that real quick. About the Chinese spy ring. I know you're shocked. A visa program designed by a Chinese spy lets Beijing funnel money into American elections. Shock, amazement. Who was it Pelosi's assistant, chauffeur? Oh, no. It was Dianne Feinstein. Dianne Feinstein had a Chinese spy in her own cabinet or whatever. I wonder if this is when she had the stroke and was half retarded. I'd like to think so. But I'm sure you recall that.
I think it predates that.
Yeah, probably. Let's see here. For laundering foreign donations to American politicians, primarily Democrats. This plot revolves around a program established by the 1990 Immigration Act called the Employment-Based Fifth Preference Visa. It was ostensibly intended to encourage foreign investors to put big money into American businesses and job creation. Foreigners who invested at least $1.05 million or $800,000 in certain economically distressed areas and created at least 10 American jobs were issued a green card and permanent resident status. Applicants under this fast-track program were subjected to very little scrutiny. In practice, the EB-5 program became a gateway to outrageous levels of foreign interference in American politics, and there are good reasons to believe it was designed that way from its inception. Schweizer's account of the EB-5 visa bubbles, with names familiar to any student of the massive Clinton fundraising scandals from the 90s. The godmother of the program was, now you'll have to help me with this pronunciation, Marie Xia?
I can't quite see it. Is that HSIA?
Yes.
It's probably Xia.
Yeah. An influential Chinese-American linked to the Riyadi family of Indonesia and its huge Lippo Group financial institution, one of whose executives was John Huang. All of those people became central figures in the Clinton-China fundraising scandal in 1996. You all will recall, as we pointed out many times, Al Gore basically in the mid-90s sold our nuclear secrets to China, which was a good time. We kind of, communism was on the ropes, and we basically administered CPR under the Clinton administration. A Senate investigation named Xia as an agent of the Chinese government who sought to conceal her ties to Beijing while funneling money to the Clintons and their allies. The Lipo group used the EB-5 visa as a battering ram to smash through America's defenses against foreign campaign contributions. There's kind of a theme developing here, which is, okay, this avenue's blocked off. Let's just use another one, right? We'll get around. The fentanyl trafficking, we'll launder it through Mexico. The campaign contributions, we'll spend a little to get a little, right? We'll spend more money so that our visas aren't more closely scrutinized, and then we'll be able to donate whoever we want and affect U.S. policy. I also know, and we haven't really talked about that, about the Chinese student groups. I've seen you talk about this a little bit, right? The Confucius Institutes and whatever that were banned, right?
I think the worst is Chinese students and scholar associations.
Yes.
They're basically extensions of the Chinese embassies, keeping their eye on the Chinese students, making sure nobody going nuts if a university invites the Dalai Lama to speak. And these universities...
In fact, I think, didn't they get that? I forget if they got it shut down or they just protested when the Dalai Lama wanted to show up. I can't remember which.
Is that San Diego?
Yeah, they were. But so the Confucius Institutes were shut down because they were a little more obvious about what they were doing. But CSSAs, they're entrenched, and it should be pointed out, they've been entrenched on American university campuses for decades. This is not something that happened last week. This is well into the 70s, late 60s, early 70s, something like that.
Yeah, and it's sad because you think like, oh, these Chinese students, they can come to America, they can get a taste of, what the world actually is. But they're just watched, and, I remember one time, a couple of years ago, a Chinese student who was in America compared Xi Jinping to one of the villains in Biker Mice from Mars.
Limburger?
Yeah, the guy Pluto, from Pluto, I think.
Yeah.
He goes back to China. He's in jail.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh my.
But
I had heard lesser stuff, like, the thing where they were, Xi Jinping showed up in San Francisco. Everybody knows this story. Xi Jinping was going to go speak in San Francisco, and a bunch of Chinese students took to the streets spontaneously to cheer him on, and there were red flags everywhere. Yeah, it was the CSSA that organized all that.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Those were the ones. And, of course, there were hundreds of counter-protesters, actual American Chinese, who were counter-protesting Xi Jinping. Not a single camera went and picked that up. And, in fact, some of the CSSAs went over and pie-faced them and harassed them and whatever, and they were just bragging about it on social media, that whole thing.
Oh, yeah. I'm so terrified of a President Newsom.
Oh, yeah, this is all under Newsom. This is the whole San Francisco cabal. Of course, Newsom used to be the mayor of San Francisco. So,
yeah. Do you remember, like a year or two ago, like when it was the Biden presidency, they could not get the Chinese to talk to them. Like diplomatic communications were dead. Newsom goes to China as like the guy who's going to solve this, talks to Xi Jinping. So he's in good. While he was there, he was playing a basketball game with a Chinese student and completely body checked him. It went viral.
Oh, yes, I do remember this.
Yeah.
He freaking fell. And I'm sure that wasn't played on Chinese state media at all.
No.
I do remember, before we move off of the San Francisco thing, even after that, even after they had the red flags everywhere, and I know that set off a lot of alarm bells, not just for people on the right, but just for any American after all those red flags show up. The CCP, even despite them outnumbering all those protesters, they demanded every single member of the CSSA on the local campuses denounce those counter protesters, which they had to do on Chinese state media right after. They literally were just trotted out on Chinese state media to denounce them.
They go after their families in China if they don't.
Remember the guy in, what was it, like 2020, 2019, who was ousted from the CSSA? I forget if he was a student president or whatever, because he was running a personal blog where it was made clear that he was a member of the Falun Gong. Something like that, which is, that's a formal enemy of the state in China, for those who don't know. Members of that faith or whatever. These are relatively benign examples of what happens in these CSSAs. And so these are essentially arms of the CCP. They're embedded on American universities, which is one of the reasons I'm sure you had quite the eye roll when Trump back in November or December said he wants to ship in, 600,000 more Chinese students on these universities. Essentially the admission. Shoot, you know what? I might actually have a clip. I wanted to talk about this. I do. But that, how did you? What was your read on Trump saying he wanted to add more Chinese students back in? Was it November or December or whatever?
Well, I'm unclear exactly what happened because I wasn't sure if he was talking about adding 600,000 or just maintaining the roughly 600,000 Chinese students who are already generally coming, because he had put a bunch of restrictions on Chinese students coming to the U.S.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that was him just backing off on some of those restrictions, or if it was 600,000 more. I don't think it is the huge surge that some people thought it was.
Yeah, I think it has been misportrayed. What I worried more so was the implication behind it. Here we go. I was watching a podcast recently. Gordon Chang was talking on it and talking about that story a little bit. I actually have a clip if you want to comment on this. And Hobo and Taryn, you're more than welcome to as well.
He made the statement about the 600,000 Chinese students, and that essentially our university system is dependent on foreign students. And he mentioned China. I was just flabbergasted that anyone would say that something in America will fail, especially like our higher education, which is esteemed around the world. Otherwise, why do people want to be here so badly? That it would fail without foreign students. That bothered me.
I couldn't agree with you more, Elizabeth. The president's statement on more than doubling the number of Chinese students in our country was just wrong. We know that, for instance, Chinese students commit espionage, about maybe 13% according to one study. And the more students we have here, the more loss there's going to be. One of the things that we know is that China, through its agents, operatives, and consular officials, they monitor, coerce, and surveil students, and they get them to do things that probably the students don't want to do, like stealing information, like political demonstrations on our soil, and we don't have the political will to stop it. But obviously we've got to, because these Chinese students have become a threat to the United States, and the more of them that they're here, the greater the threat is.
What's your initial impressions from that? I agree with the criticism of, because I do think in that same press conference, Trump said something like, we need the Chinese students. We can't have colleges without them, all that shit. So what's your initial reaction to that?
I mean, could you imagine how bad things would get if our universities collapsed?
Arn, Drat. Wouldn't that be awful? He said 13% might be involved in espionage. I probably should provide a little context. I think between 2023 and 2024, the official reported membership of CSSAs on American campuses was somewhere in the neighborhood of 1.1 to 1.5 million students. Yeah. There's a lot of people to be under the direct funding and oversight of the CCP. That's a lot. So 13% might not sound like a lot, but it's quite a few. It's a few. So, Taryn, any thoughts on that?
I mean, it is awfully suspicious that I'm again another tinfoil hat moment, but a lot of these tech bros that you see, a lot of people in the tech area, Silicon Valley, up in Canada, what have you, a lot of them have a lot of Chinese people working for them, or hell, even start relationships with people who are Chinese. And you got to wonder, what's the level of espionage there? How much of these tech bros and companies that they work for, how much is that is getting sent back to China?
Yeah. How's it? I mean, you can't, and there's also a feedback effect a little bit. You know, where the more liberal a student body gets, the more liberal the faculty gets. And it kind of creates a feedback loop. If you've ever gone to university or even a community college, you probably could witness this effect. If you already have a lib professor and all the students are super lib, they just get more and more lib. I used to have this professor, the philosophy professor, who was super, super, super lib. And the more liberal a student was, the more overt he would get in his hardcore commie leftism, right? So if you have students that are essentially impelled to advocate for a certain position, and that position is pro-China, how much more pro-China does the faculty get? And how much of a deafening din of a feedback loop does that then create on college campuses? It's not like college campuses are havens for conservatarian thought at present. You know what I mean? Hobo, did you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely. The first thing I was thinking before the guy even mentioned it was, yeah, like how many of these students are potential spies, right?
Right.
So that's definitely the biggest concern I would have.
Yeah. Did you, Taryn, did you have, speaking of Trump making good and bad statements, did you have some of the clips from Davos?
I do have one. While China Uncensored is here, though, I thought he might want to hear a little something from our vice president, J.D. Vance, about the #1 China lover, Hassan Piker.
Hey! Hold on. Is it time? Is it time for the game show sensation that's sweeping the nation, ladies and gentlemen? Is it time for the Hassan Piker is a fucking retard minute?
When you press a button, something awesome has to happen.
Christ, what are you doing? You're being such a baby.
It's time, folks. It's time, ladies and gentlemen.
Prepare yourselves.
Prepare your anus.
I mean, I kind of obsessively trained him. Like you could see this. Like he sits on command, he stays on command. He has his command place, which is basically if I snap my finger and point, he will run to that place and lay down.
You don't have to zap him.
No.
Hassan.
Like Hassan Piker, no. No electrocution of dogs here.
How disgusting is that? What does that tell you about a person?
Well, I think it tells you that they're not that they're bad people.
Yes.
If you can actually cause suffering to an innocent animal, you're probably the kind of person who doesn't worry about suffering in people as well.
Yeah.
And that's been my experience. If you mistreat dogs, that's almost 100% sign that you're going to be a really terrible person. So it's one of the ways, we really sort of test people is if Atlas responds well to them, if they like Atlas, we know they're good people. But you can tell if somebody's really mean to animals, it's like the Jeffrey Dahmer thing.
Yeah.
Like every serial killer ever has actually been really bad to animals. That's sort of how they started.
Preach.
Hassan ain't taking it lying down, unlike most things. Did you have actually, let me go ahead and bring it up myself.
No, I have it.
Oh, do you? Okay. Go ahead and click on. No, not that. Hold on. I will bring it up, actually.
That's the only one you gave me. Which, is there another?
I got it. Don't worry about it. Here we go. Hassan, a little butt mad about Vance calling him out over his puppo shock therapy. claims that second lady Usha Vance announcing her pregnancy is an indication of a classic failing marriage, hoping that another baby will fix what's broken. The absolute Comintern cope. That has to be a high watermark right there for the Hassan Piker is a fucking retard minute. I really have to say. And now, with that said, let's see Trump at Davos. Boy, for a guy who's supposedly hated by all of Europe, all of sundry across the world, it is awfully odd how many people were lining up to kick the deepest part of his ass crack.
One of the biggest barriers to saving for a down payment has been surging credit card debt. The profit margin for credit card companies now exceeds 50%, one of the biggest. And they charge Americans interest rates of 28%, 30%, 31%, 32%. Whatever happened to usury?
Usury!
So to help our citizens
usury
recover from the Biden disaster, all caused by this horrible precedent, I'm asking Congress to cap credit card interest rates at 10% for 1 year. And this will help millions of Americans save for a home. They have no idea they're paying 28%. They go out there a little late in their payment and they end up losing their house. It's terrible. One of the biggest.
Goodness gracious.
Trump is calling credit cards usury and you're blackpilling?
It's mind-blowing. I never thought I would have a president who even used the word usury.
You should just go full biblical and ban lending money at interest.
I come from a church where that's very much part of the doctrine. Is usury of any kind is forsworn. So this is wild. This is absolutely wild that I have a president who's even talking about that. And he's not a particularly religious sort, although after the 22 caliber ear piercing, I imagine he probably came a little closer to God, just a little bit. I could see how that would change your ways. There was another clip. Do you have that clip or shall I?
I just brought it up.
Okay, sweet. Here we
This one's a good one, too.
Yes, please.
Windmills all over Europe.
Windmills.
All over the place. And they are losers. One thing is that the more windmills a country has, the more money that country loses and the worse that country is doing. China makes almost all of the windmills. And yet I haven't been able to find any wind farms in China. Did you ever think of that? It's a good way of looking at it. They're smart. China's very smart. They make them. They sell them for a fortune. They sell them to the stupid people that buy them. But they don't use them themselves. They put up a couple of big wind farms, but they don't use them. They just put them up to show people what they could look like. They don't spin. They don't do anything.
They kill lots of eagles and shit.
Mostly. But China goes with the coal. They
Go
go
on
with
U.S. tech.
oil and gas. They're starting to look at nuclear, windmills.
Windmills. Although I can understand thinking hot air is a national export if you're sitting at Davos. But yeah, so windmills. Dude, is this not like a top 5 pro wrestling feuds of all time? Trump versus windmills? Fucking WrestleMania. Let's see it, guys. Jesus, we got to get to super chats. I wonder if there's any for Chris. That'd be freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Here. Dude, nothing ever happens. We're already 3 whole weeks into the year, and look at all the no things that happened at all. Let's see here. You're blackpilling. Don Lemon is going to prison, and you're blackpilling. But look on the bright side, Don Lemon. You're going to prison. All right.
Donald Quixote.
Civil War is here, but still buy my pool water. It makes the black pills go down smooth. All right, here we go. Dilly Bod, love your videos. I just have to say, we don't know the full details of the Greenland deal at this moment, but seeing Eurocucks working overtime on X has been fun. Cheers. bro. I love that Trump opened by saying, hey, we'll give you a bunch of money and then you can manage, and then we'll kind of take over management of Greenland. And Europe was like, no, fuck you. Go away. And your little dog too, right? So he slapped a tariff on them. And they're immediately like, I yield. He's like, fine, we'll go ahead and keep our money and we'll take Greenland. What the hell? And Europe was like, fine. That sounds like a great deal. Some fierce negotiators over in Eurotrashtopia, folks. Fierce negotiators. It's out of the deal. Grundy Peebo. Speaking of which, before we move off of Greenland, Chris, do you have any take on the Greenland stuff? It looks like this deal is imminent. We talked about it a little bit before you showed up.
Oh, yeah. I think the main focus is Trump's Golden Dome missile defense system. Yeah. That's going to be the big reason, I think, why he wants it. And they basically have said as much.
Yeah. Razor, thanks to you, I'm now practicing Lutheran. Oh, shoot. Don't lay that evil on me. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. Sorry. Sorry about that, guys. I didn't mean to do that. Thanks to you, I'm now practicing Lutheran and have been baptized recently. God bless and Godspeed. Don't you lay that evil on me. No, Godspeed. I'm glad to hear that. Favorite Beast in Black song? I don't know if I have one. I read that Utah schools are pulling Wicked off their library shelves, probably for the sex scenes, but I'd pull it out of schools for being one of the worst works of literature in the past 40 years. But pull it off shelves for being an Oz book that wasn't written by L. Frank Baum, I say. Banish the Shadow. Trump's first offer is always his best. Greenlanders could have been rich, but Europe chose to virtue signal, and the Don got what he needs for free. This is exactly what I was alluding to. It's absolutely wild.
All he had to do was raise the price on wine and cheese.
Mage leader! Church disruptors arrested. ICE comes to Maine. Local libs can barely get 20 people to show up to a protest. Yeah, we talked about that a little bit a couple of weeks ago. Out in Tucson, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. Out in Tucson, they had a big Minneapolis anti-ICE protest and whatever. And you would think Tucson, relatively near the border, bluer than Movie Bob's balls. Dude, it'd be a standing army. No, they didn't draw enough people to fill a Winnebago, for crying out loud. Let's see here. ICE names the op after our fishing industry. I don't even smoke and I need a cigarette. Godspeed, Mage Leader. Thank you, sir. Let's see here. Seeker of the Way. Voice of America is full of propaganda. Destroyers of truth and liberty and light. I just wanted to highlight something I'm sure you already know. I.e. Voice of America in Iran, blessings in Christ's name. Yeah, I know they're still in the process of rooting out all the frickin' tankies in Voice of America. Tomato Cutter, and of course I talked about Voice of America in my McCarthy video. Voice of America was like basically an entire chapter there, because Voice of America had just Soviet agents out the ass. There was a point where, gosh, they literally cut off service in, I think it was Israel, when the news came out of Stalin's anti-Jewish pogroms. They just shut off all coverage so no one would hear about Stalin liquidating Jews. Tomato Cutter, hey y'all, I'm resting from the new Dynasty Warriors DLC to watch the show. How coincidental. I was wondering if y'all have read Romance of the Three Kingdoms and if it gives any insight into China. I have not. Any of you guys?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's great. Especially if you played Dynasty Warriors, because you can put some names to faces. Faces might not be the right way to put it, but...
Yes. All right.
But since... Well, okay, never mind.
All right. Love China Uncensored. So there's a shout out for you.
Hey.
I think I put China Observer just ahead. It's also a great channel.
Come out.
Kicked. Banned. They made me belly laugh at the CCP's antics. Silly commies. You can't fly an ICBM with water in its engines. How about the freaking whatever happened with that submarine story a while back where they literally like sank right in the harbor? Blast radius. I think Hassan Piker is funded by communists in China. Well, didn't he just recently do the big tour of China and they shut down his live stream? Did you cover any of that stuff?
Oh yeah, we did. Yeah, that was hilarious that they stopped him for like having Mao on his phone. But I mean, China's been over the past year or so has been funding a bunch of people to go take tours, and especially in Xinjiang. Look, I don't see any genocide. There is no genocide.
Yep.
Tim Pool mentioned somebody like approached him with money to do some kind of Chinese propaganda thing, and he's turned it down.
Yeah, they've been reaching out to any influencer with a certain number of subscribers on YouTube or any of these other platforms to go over and for a while there it was travelogues. Like just go on freaking YouTube and type in China travelogue, and dude, 90% of that is just propaganda. It's state-funded propaganda.
Oh yeah,
I show speed being the. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to speak over you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just that YouTube, like we uncovered this like a year ago. If you search for China, mostly pro CCP stuff, doesn't matter if the engagement, which is supposed to be their marker for recommending on the algorithm, pro CCP stuff at the top. Channels like mine or Lawa86, Serpinzetta talks about China, buried by all of these pro CCP videos.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, dude. Nothing about the YouTube search feature is actually a search. Yeah. It's basically a curated recommendation bar, and functionally useless at this point. You can never find anything you want, and it's usually propagandistically arranged. Mark Daly.
Before you move on, I just wanted to point out the most famous travelogue recently has been I Show Speed going to China and just hyping up everything to like flying cars and all that.
But
that was the biggest one.
Guys, LED lights.
Yeah, buildings lit up. Isn't that amazing?
They have shit you can buy at Dollar General. Mark Daly. So this is the first arrest, not Soros Jr., not Comedy, not the Russian hoaxsters. First off, it's not the first arrest. Not the 2020 election stealers, not Walls Omar and the Minnesota Fakers, not even Lemon and the Church Busters. This actually is the Church Busters. Just some harmless little crank. This is part of a wave of arrests of the Church Busters. Maybe you should have proofread before you sent this, but thanks for the 20 so you could send a lie. Mercenary X, the only legal system we can use is military court. Godspeed. All right. Stand with our latte community, hipster atheist. Godspeed. Normal man, stand with the Somalis. Don't ask why they are driving brand new BMWs. Dino side, Ephesians 6:10-18 can't fit in a super chat nor make it YouTube friendly. Godspeed. Also Luke 22:36. Okay, look that up, guys. Shout out. Today's my dad's birthday. He's 79 and German. I don't know why we had to know he was German, but Godspeed. I think I know why we needed to know he was German. Marussia Dark, as a three-time Trump voting libertarian, it saddens me the two camps aren't natural allies. I like Trump's directional progress and hate purity spirals, but also dislike him siding with neocons over Rand and Massey and MTG. Godspeed. Well, I think it has something to do with, like, they just had a freaking vote over immigration enforcement, and he went ahead and crossed the aisle. Something like 7 Democrats crossed the aisle and voted for it. Massey decided he was... Can you even consider it Massey crossing the aisle? He's basically set up a base camp on the other side of the aisle at this point. Once again, Massey votes with Democrats and against immigration enforcement. I think it probably has more to do with that. All right. Cesario, is it just me or is the lack of arrests of the left because Trump wants to bank them for the midterms? Not a bold move there, Cotton, if true. Bank them for the midterms? Oh, I see. So in the midterms to prosecute them just in the nick of time to win political points and maybe help Republicans out. I don't know. Do any of you guys think that's a viable political strategy or one that he would likely pursue?
I mean, it's possible, but I don't see him doing it.
There's been rumors of major arrests since like his first term.
Yes, it's kind of the right-wing equivalent of the walls are closing in. It's like the walls are closing in. Let's see here. Hi, Atari Nobunaga. Hi, Razor Fist. Are there any political commentators you would personally like to suggest? To me, you're the only guy, as far as I know, who's actually genuine and not a con artist trying to rip people off. Well, we have one on right now who talks about, the thing I love about his channel is it's specialized. Although you have other channels where you talk about other subjects, right? Spin-off channels or whatever.
I have an America Uncovered and a little tiny gaming channel.
Right. So I love specialized channels that talk about their particular area of expertise. I love those kind of podcasts. It's funny. We have kind of a variety podcast here. So I'm a complete and utter hypocrite, saint and sinner, folks. But I love podcasts that are one subject devoted because you get so much more in depth. And that's something that political commentary and historical commentary and stuff really lacks right now. Everybody's got a grab bag approach and nobody's really drilling down on one particular issue. Do any of you guys have recommendations on political commentators?
I would say, of course, as you know, Razor, Michael Savage, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Classic.
He was the inspiration for me even doing this years ago. Some of the ones I like are dead. Unfortunately, Scott Adams died recently, and Roy Masters. You remember I was big into Roy Masters back in the day. Some of those kind of guys. So, and of course, Pat Buchanan, which I did a whole video about the death of the West.
Somebody mentions in chat Stefan Molyneux.
Yeah, Stefan Molyneux was great, especially in the 2016 election, debunking a lot of there was so much media propaganda haze. There was like a fog of information war at the time, and you couldn't get correct information. And he did this series of brilliant videos. The truth about Donald Trump, the untruth about Donald Trump, and he wound up having to make multiple installments in that series because more and more lies kept being uncovered. So people think Scott Adams is the guy who debunked the fine people on both sides hoax. Actually, that was Stefan Molyneux. He did that originally in his video, and it was like one thing after another, just bullet points and hour-plus long videos, just one lie after another. Okay, here's the sources. Here they are on screen. Here's the counterpoint. Brilliantly done. And what was his reward for doing that? He was one of the first commentators to get yeeted off YouTube. He affected that 2016 election, I believe. I had no intention of voting for Trump until I watched his videos, to tell you the truth. It made me do my own research. Did anybody do that for you with regard to the current political environment? I'm curious if our guest had anyone like that who kind of red-pilled them in a big way on political commentary of any kind.
Well, I think for me with Trump, the moment that was the kind of woke me up is I was in Asia during when he was elected. Like I actually was boarding a plane while the election was happening, and I was looking at my phone, seeing it go from New York Times saying 100% Hillary Clinton to it's going to change, and we all boarded before the results came out. It was such a weird, tense plane flight, as everyone was like, "Well, what world are we going to land in?" But I was in Hong Kong, and I saw the news that Trump took a call from the Taiwanese president at the time. Like, I just heard that piece of news, like not filtered through anything. It was just that. And
Right.
So I was like, no, that's pretty good. And then I got back to the hotel and I went online and I just saw all of these articles saying this was the worst thing he could have done, basically taking China's side on Taiwan. And I'm like, what is going on?
Right. So immediately the propaganda had already started. I mean, it started even before that, though. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
all the accusers and everything, all of who withered up and blew away in the wind afterward, except for Stormy Daniels. She kept right on blowing. Anyway, so not Soviet Union, pro-Viet Union. Thank you, Jeg Stein. Oh, God. Stephen Nizak, by the blessed just workness, I don't know what that means, of Todd Howard. We are decades away from a war, hot or cold, with China. Oh, right, Fallout. I cannot support this timeline until we at least get vaults and power armor. I would remind you that is an alternate history, sir. Hopefully.
We're not going to annex Canada?
You know, it may just come to that. Speaking of territories that we probably should annex, California has long since annexed a part of Arizona, and we should probably talk about it because some bad news for Tucson libs. Tucson Pride announces cancellation of organization and annual festival. It didn't just kill the Tucson Pride Festival, it killed the entire Tucson Pride organization.
What a shame.
This is a wild story.
What a rotten way to die.
Ah, such a shame.
Tucson Pride announces cancellation of organization and annual festival. The Tucson Pride Board of Directors has announced the cancellation of the upcoming Tucson Pride Festival, along with the decision to close the organization. The festival was scheduled for February 21st, but has been canceled. The newly appointed board has also decided to close Tucson Pride as an organization, a decision they said was difficult to make.
Back to the airport bathroom, boys.
We recognize the deep importance Tucson Pride has held in our community since 1977, serving as a space of visibility, advocacy, celebration, and resilience for nearly 5 decades, the board said. The Tucson Pride Board of Directors expressed gratitude to the volunteers, sponsors, artists, activists, and community members who have supported the organization over the years. They assured that all funds received for 2026 festival, including vendor fees, sponsorships, and prepaid contributions, will be refunded within 30 to 90 days. We want to thank the Tucson LGBTQ community.
Yeah, what are we up to now, Pie?
And its allies for your unwavering support, passion, commitment over the years. The board said Tucson Pride exists because of you, and its legacy will forever remain part of our city's history.
Is the California money tit finally drying up? Is that what's going on here?
One can only hope.
Now, if we could only quell the supply of California residents, for crying out loud. I see this as more an outgrowth of some of the funding apparatus of the Democratic Party becoming more unstable. Because this is almost like when there's an economic downturn and you notice specialty retailers taking a massive hit and closing all over the place, you know, record stores, the 2 that still exist, comic stores, that kind of thing. They close first. They close first once the money tit dries up. I kind of see that this as being like the specialty retailer of the Democratic Party. You're seeing organizations like this peripheral to the broader leftist funding network beginning to close up shop all around the country. Make no mistake, there has been an effort to go after the funding apparatus of the Democratic Party, which is probably strategically way more important than some of the individual headline issues that get covered on podcasts like this. You really do have to address the funding network, even as it happens, if it's just a laundering operation through Mexico, right, fellas? Are you guys noticing this broader pattern?
There's a lot of laundering going on out there.
Right. I mean, even if we're talking about in broader entertainment, did you not notice the temperature shift right after Trump was elected? We just heard the Ubisoft story. I don't have the story handy right now, that Ubisoft has canceled, like paused development completely on like 7 different projects. I'm sure none of which were woke as shit.
Oh yeah.
In order to, quote, get them right before they finally are going to launch them, presumably at some indeterminate point in the future.
Didn't China buy a big stake in Ubisoft?
Yes. And I made a video about that. It's been something I've been talking about for a while. This are you in accord with this? Is this a pattern that you've recognized where China, of course, are behind several of the big ESG funds, right, that wind up funneling money to the West? There's fewer and fewer of these now. But basically, these companies that were embattled, particularly during COVID, see a bunch of free money on the table that only has a few strings attached. And they're socio-political strings that, being coastal commie cunt flaps out in Seattle or wherever these developers are based, they're already predisposed to imbibe in. And so, okay, we'll go ahead and add this checklist to our game. And as we bite down that poison pill, we'll have more money to make our game. And we've seen this happen with game after game after game. Look at Assassin's Creed Shadows, which I'm sure won't be on our upcoming top 5 turds of 2025 list. We've seen this happen with big games. And as it was Tencent, who are a vassal, as all Chinese corporations are, of the CCP, they were invested somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 15% in Ubisoft. And now they are in a position to inherit basically the entire company. I forget if that's gone through or not, or if it's just still looming, but they have a unique advisory role now in Ubisoft. So they basically have hollowed out this company from the inside. They've indirectly pushed the ESG. The ESG leads to falling sales. The falling sales lead to an embattled company. An embattled company leads to an opportunity for a company like Tencent, again, a vassal of the CCP, to inherit the company. Kind of a quasi-indirect corporate takeover via the CCP, sort of indirectly. I've noticed this happen again and again and again. Have you observed this? Is this an observable phenomenon to you, or do you have anything to add to that theorem?
What I would add is, I think that it's interesting while, China might be advising these companies to, go woke and go broke. They're advertising their games as, not woke. Black Myth Wukong had that whole thing about don't talk about feminism. Yep. And, there are some people on the right who go nuts for that. Or like there'll be videos, I see this on X a lot, where there'll be like videos of like some Chinese school where the kids are doing military drills. And, these Americans are like, oh, that's a good thing compared to like what they're teaching in our schools. And like, there's weird things going on in our schools, but it's not normal for kindergartners to be practicing throwing grenades at Japanese people.
Right. Probably not. Although I would like to bring back the firearms training classes in high schools. That would be pretty great.
Bring it back younger. Second
we
Amendment.
Did? Yeah, it's crazy. I'll talk to my dad or my mom, and it's like, oh yeah, so that semester I went ahead and took firearm safety. Like, what? In high school? What are you talking about? What? This is like the 70s. You know what I mean? Wasn't even that long ago. I do see there's already a predisposition in a lot of people, especially the shallow commentariat, to see the grass is always greener somewhere else anyways. But this based China narrative is full body backbending cringe. And it's especially disingenuous because just because China bans at home what they fund abroad doesn't mean they're based. It means they know that it's caustic and they know that it's poisonous to the culture, which is why they're exporting it. Right? I'm sure they've banned fentanyl too. I haven't looked into it, but I'm sure they have. It doesn't mean they're not trafficking it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean it's based to be a fentanyl trafficker. You'll hear that sometimes in rejoinder too. They're based enough to know that it hurts us. It's like, yeah, what the hell? It's not based to be a fentanyl trafficker either.
Or that they're like, they're an ethno-state, and that's a good thing. They stand up for the Han Chinese people. They don't.
Yeah, and not only that, but gosh, there's so many subgroups within China. That's kind of a a uniformist Western idea of what China is. It's actually a lot of different racial groups in China. It's not really a unified ethno-state. That happens when your land mass is that huge. Space Monkey 0899, Trump, I'll buy Greenland for 700 billion. Denmark, no, you can't have it. But you can have free minerals and build anywhere you want. Trump, deal. Godspeed. Everyone's saying the GOP is at risk of losing in November. Clearly doesn't talk to the actual working class voters. I'm white pilling like Heath Ledger. Please don't white pill that way. And I think that might have been more of a purple pill. I don't know. Ask the Olsen twins. Zerp Derp. Do you still remember actually, before we move off of that, Chris, do you have any read on the midterms that we're approaching? It's pretty early. I don't think it's prediction time at all, but any reads on the upcoming midterms?
Yeah, I don't. It's hard for me to say because I mean, there's a lot of propaganda. There's a lot of active operations going on, and we'll have to see how things go.
Yeah, I see a lot more of the effort being directed on the internecine front on our own side to divide more of the right. Because I don't think the left have much of a prayer of winning back moderates. They barely have a chance of winning back their own base. So their only hope really at this juncture is divide the opposition. The more fractured they are, the better it is for us. And then maybe we can work some chicanery with ballot boxes. Maybe that gets us over the line. That appears to be the operative arithmetic, but that's just my read. Taryn, Hobo, either of you have... maybe not a prediction, but a read on what is going to play into the midterms coming up here in November?
Well, I think a lot of what is happening right now with these riots that are happening, it's opening up a lot of people, a lot of people's eyes. I think it's having the direct opposite effect of what the left hopes. I predict, just like with Trump in 2024, I think the United States is going to shift a little bit further red. What do you think, Hobo?
Honestly, I would bet on the Dems taking at least one of the houses of Congress, because that's just kind of what happens if you look historically. That's kind of what happens in the midterms. Is the opposition takes like one of the houses, maybe. So
yeah. All right. Gotta love Don Lemon. Private lawyers probably told him exactly where he could push to. Meanwhile, his clown circus will go to jail while he cries fascism. And hey, Razor, are you going to sue Macron for stealing your look? I hear it's popular for podcasters to sue the French. Sadly, I hear it's popular for France to sue podcasters as well. So I don't know. The mutually assured destruction might stay my hand there.
Did he give a reason why he was wearing those glasses?
You want me to speculate?
Please.
I think it could make ample fodder for a Hallmark movie, maybe.
Wait! I gotta say this. I saw the Telegraph today posting about Macron's glasses. Yeah. And they wrote, "Testosterone is the primary currency in Davos this year, and the French president's aviators have placed him at the top of the pecking order."
God, the cringe.
Oh, the title is "Can Macron's Sunglasses Save the West?"
Right. It's kind of like how Biden, every time he was embattled, which was frequently, and I'm speaking against my own aesthetic interests here, would strap on the aviators, and it was suddenly like, he thought he was Maverick and Top Gun when really he just looked like a mall cop. That whole thing. If all you know in your life is shallow optics, that's what you'll be expert in. Magnum Norse, nothing more entertaining than a heathen preaching the word of God. We watched the cam footage of the bearded Bolshevik guy storming into the church, lecturing Christians on having coffee. Something. What is your read, by the way, on the storming of the church and what likely happens with all that?
I think they've realized it's an effective tactic, unless they all get put in jail. But I think we could be seeing a lot more of that happening. It's because, I mean, part of the dialectics is you drive the other side to have a reaction, and then that just keeps pushing things further and further.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think one of the most important things Americans can do is to learn about Christianity and the history and the theology, since that really is the culture of the West.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it also reveals, they're mad about something else, so they go charge into a church.
Easy target. They don't go into a mosque.
Yeah. What did it have to do with the ICE shooting? Absolutely nothing. What did it have to do with the 10+ billion fraud, 9+ billion, whatever it's at now? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely. Except that Tim Walz pretends to go to church. There's that, I guess. That's about the only commonality. Barnes thinks they had the right to disrupt church. Legally? I don't know. I don't know what Minnesota law is. Provided they weren't violent, he may have an argument, but I'm not so sure about that. If separation of church and state means separation of church from state, just as it means separation from the church of the state, then obviously there could be an argument made there that political protests shouldn't be allowed, certainly within the grounds of a church. Again, I'm not familiar enough with the particulars there. All right, let's see here. Hey, Razor, I appreciate all the content you pump out, man. Any chance of you, Vox, and John Delarose doing an Arcaven Nights again? I'd love to. Maybe when it's time to push the next book, actually. Worth mentioning, Woke Farmer, the veteran, was in Army HR. I forget if I got that out earlier, but yes, he had no war record. He never was anywhere. He worked in the HR department of the Army. He made a lot of claims, essentially stolen valor, but he's never been overseas. He was also dishonorably discharged, a real turd. He was dishonorably discharged for stealing. I should add. Yeah. Not an unserious charge. Nguyen, you mean brother and sister, right? Are we back on Ilhan Omar again? I shed tears for my light bulb-headed brothers. You have no idea how relieved I was to find out it was a horrible nightmare. Godspeed. Virginia claims to have elected a sensible moderate Democrat on day one, fires off a policy platform redder than a boiled lobster coated in checkup. I should ask, Chris, do you need to bounce at any point here? Because we're going to get into reading chats. I hope there's a few for you in here. But did you need to bounce at any point here?
I'll hang out for a bit more. I'm good.
Okay, sweet.
I'm enjoying this.
Sweet. My balls itch. Love that name. Shout out to YouTuber S2 Underground. He's a former military intelligence officer who does 5 to 10 minute vids in the format of intel briefs. He's been doing good work tracking the Minnesota happenings. Always good to have those kind of channels that are just on stuff, not so much on the spin. Zerp Derp, do you still remember Kekistan and Meme Magic? I've been listening to Chatelet and have been feeling nostalgic around the time of Trump's first presidency. The thing I like about first term was pretty strong on the memes, but less on the administration. This time around, I feel like the policy is a lot stronger and the get shit done-itude is a lot stronger, but the memes maybe not as much.
You know, I should have said what red pilled me was Cantbot and his view on Thule.
Yes. Quiet Rioter. I vote we change the quote dumb blonde to Pam Bondi. Both are essentially the same. Now let's at least grant her a brief grace period while she's arrested a few shitbags. It's nice to at least have a little trickle of that. What is your thus far estimation on Pam Bondi? Chris, are you as cool on her as many people? I am certainly I'm deep frozen on her.
I mean, the Epstein stuff was weird. I don't know. I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other.
I never heard of a man who fought a paper shredder and lost. Peaceful. Godspeed. Let's see here. First time, long time. You ever read Inquest magazine back in the day? No, I did not. Godspeed every time Tim Pool says Civil War. I imagine him saying it in a Boss Nass sound. You son no care about Nabu. That jackass lib of the church vid is the final boss of Gen X Rage Against the Machine fans. Is he not? Titanically cringe adult theater kid. Using your values against you while not believing in them. That is a classic tactic against Christianity. And the worst part about it is they always have this kind of greeting card section of Walmart version of Christianity. You know, they don't really have an actual understanding of what the Bible says on account of they've never read it. They kind of know the Cliff Notes a little bit. So you get this, here's the incorrect standard of Christianity that I was given in public school in the 2-day unit on the Reformation. Therefore, you're not adhering to that.
Jesus said to be nice to people.
Jesus said to be ambiguously nice to people. Get it right.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to try pronouncing your name. Perhaps a bit on positive Christianity the 1930s Germans pushed is apropos right now. Another politically/racially correct church. Indeed, and there was a lot of revisionism that happened in the German church in the 1930s. And it's funny, it led to sort of the woke version of Lutheranism that we have in America with the ELCA today. The Lutheran Church was the state church of Germany. After it was shackled to the Nazis, it was left shackled to the state after the Nazis were out of power. So as the government of Germany went harder left, because a lot of commies took power after the Nazis were driven out, the church got more and more lib. And then when that was exported to America after World War II via seminarians and GIs and everybody who had been worshiping there after the war, that's how you wound up with Seminex. And that's the big controversy. I recommend you guys look it up, where the Lutheran Church essentially split along lines of, we're going to be Lutheran or we're going to have pride flags in our churches. And so that's the two branches, basically. So indirectly, the Nazis caused the woke evangelical Lutheran Church in America today. Inspector Javert. So are they just going to whine and obstruct until the midterms, then cut off funding to ICE? Are we even allowed to enforce the law anymore? Godspeed. I mean, Democrats, we didn't even talk about any of these stories. They are being increasingly vocal and just outright admitting what they plan to do if they take back the House in the midterms. They've already said, defund ICE, stack the court, the whole 9 yards. They've come right, and it's not marginal figures. Chuck Schumer, people like this are saying this. People in actual positions of authority in the Democratic Party and in Congress. A judge keeps blocking Don Lemonade's arrest. That is true. The only reason why they did this at a majority white church is because they know they would be safe from retaliation, right? It's typified by the one kid basically saying, I'm not going to comment. I'm not going to retaliate, whatever he was saying, right? He knows he can get that reaction at a room full of actual practicing Christians I think it's a confessional Baptist church. So one of the based Baptist churches out there. Sonic Boomers. The longer this goes on, the more the middle will shift rightward. Literally only the rhinos are the left's only hope. Taking us down from the inside, I agree. Trump ordered the deal, Denmark, and they said yes. Godspeed. Ayaan Hirsi Ali popped up on my radar after escaping a childhood of Somali Islam and riding with a new atheist. She's since converted to Christianity as endorsing Trump's immigration policy. I mean, is it really Trump's immigration policy, or is it just enforcing the immigration policy we already had and wasn't being enforced for decades? It's not as if he's passed a law. I wish, especially overturning Hart-Celler. Cerberus balls. You mentioned before that Katie Hobbs has her ass in the crosshairs somehow. Yes, through a similar scheme to the one in Minneapolis. I mean, with Tim Walz stepping down, Katie Hobbs is officially the most corrupt governor in the entire country right now, objectively. She was involved in a pay-for-play scam with orphan, it's like a CPS housing scam. Basically, kids who are put in CPS are then put in state-run housing. And the contractors to build the CPS housing had donated metric shitloads of money to the Arizona Democratic Party and Katie Hobbs. And without any formal internal review process to actually line up prospective contractors to be able to build those, and there were a number of bidders, they just gave no bid to the company that had donated to her. It was a pretty wild pay-for-play scam, and I suspect when it's all said and done, it's going to look an awful lot like what happened in Minneapolis. Will this give Carrie Lake another shot at the governor's office? I don't think she wants another shot at the governor's office. She won the first time and just didn't get to be governor. But it will help Andy Biggs for sure. And he's hitting the issue really hard, to his credit. I'm still pissed off at what happened in 2022. Yes. My balls itch. This article makes the Twin Cities sound like the first act of Black Hawk Down, doesn't it? Funny, I don't have light bulb relatives. I don't try to get in their pants. Edit. Apparently, I can't mention where they're from. Really? Really? Oh, Tobin Russell, it's a bad presidency to be saying, come arrest me, cowards. Oh, God. It's a bad precedent, I think he meant to say. Hey, Taryn, do we have a Rumble rant?
We do have a couple here. Let's see if I can read a few. Wasp, thank you for that 10. A good friend of mine who founded the company I work at passed away yesterday. He was a 100-year-old World War II vet.
Wow.
Who survived the Battle of the Bulge. I took it pretty hard. A Razor Fist stream helps.
Godspeed to him. There's a legitimate American hero right there. Jeez.
And Lagarticus. I've noticed objective silence on the Iran front for a week or two now. Media silence is easy to figure out, but is Trump setting up a Venezuela sequel op while everyone's focused on Greenland?
I'm wondering. It isn't very common for Trump to make a statement like he did about Iran and then not do anything about it. It makes him look bad, if nothing else. It makes him look feckless, which is not a position he likes to assume. If I had to guess, I would say that behind the scenes, there's a lot more going on than we're aware of. But yeah, I'm not a fan of the inaction in the immediate aftermath. Probably he knows more than we do about maybe prospective retaliation or the preparedness of Iran. Have you done a lot of covering of the Iranian issue? I think I saw at least one video on your channel, Chris.
Yeah, I've done a couple of things about it. Yeah, I mean, Trump basically encouraged the protesters to keep protesting to target, the regime. And I mean, it's been a week. That's a lot of people are dead now. So you're right. It doesn't look good if he just leaves it at that.
Yeah.
They were definitely expecting some kind of help.
Absolutely. It just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Granted, it's been a week or a little more than that, so whatever. I guess I'm taking a wait and see approach, but it gets tougher by the day to take the waiting and seeing.
Yeah, supposedly some aircraft carrier group got into the area recently or today. We'll see.
I know they launched around the time Trump made the remarks, something like that.
They pulled it back.
Yeah. Mecha Ninja 8, Mexican coworker bragged that he knows at least 5 people who let illegals use their social security info for work and taxes. Justifies because, quote, Americans are too lazy for actual hard labor. Only illegals can do it. And of course, this has always been a fallacy. Most of the jobs that Mexicans are doing used to be done by low-skilled American labor years ago. It's just that for decades, they basically slowly weaned us off of those jobs. That's essentially what happened. This used to be the kind of like seasonal farm labor and stuff. This used to be the kind of stuff that teenagers and even like preteens sometimes under the table would do. You would just, I want a little bit extra spending money, so I'll run over to the local farm and go pick some freaking vegetables and whatever. We just culturally have been weaned off of that, and it's probably been a little bit of a directed effort because some of the farmers, especially the big corpo ones, benefit so much financially from the continuance of this unspoken policy. See, Stryker, I live 2 hours from Minneapolis, and there's a negative 21 cold snap this weekend. Wouldn't it be a shame if these idiots just ended up freezing? Well, most of them are from out of state, so they probably don't have the same resistance. Normal man, the contrast between Iran and Minnesota shows which protest is clearly the fake one. That's true. The protests in Iran started up immediately after, whereas the ones in Minneapolis, gosh, we had that full week of just awkward silence, and then all of a sudden, hey, look, there's a bunch of people, and they all have pre-printed signage. How organic. Beefy 5-layer husbando. You'd be surprised how many people just don't notice. 600 plus flock cameras went up in Connecticut in 6 months, and next to no one knows they exist or what they are. I have no idea what you're talking about. I guess I'm included in that number. Remember Acorn? They just reorganized as Make All People Legally Equal. Maple. Yes, of course. Shout out to James O'Keefe, who basically took Acorn down. I think that was James O'Keefe's first big kind of expose. Damn, China taking over the UN. I think I've seen Steel Battalion tackle this back in 2012. Now, if only that game wasn't focused around the Kinect. Many such cases. Omar is from a family that massacred people in Somalia. That's the allegation. I don't know how credible the claims that her dad was a war criminal, but he was a general for a communist dictator, so I would tend to think there's a non-zero likelihood. Tim Pool's been sitting on that fence so long he's bonded with it on the subatomic level. I think that was my joke, actually. But Godspeed. Razor, of course, socialists are crooks. They always crooks, no matter where they're from. Also, plenty of people, Obama and Clinton, have muddled the water. Godspeed. I did see this. Brett Cooper said Sneeko and Fuentard have aura. I think we've all kind of seen what direction Brett Cooper is arcing in. Funny, the same direction as ad revenue and impressions on social media. Magnum Norse, why do we allow this communism to continue? Why did we put it on life support in the 90s? This is probably a good question to put to Chris. What do you put, again, this is a very broad question, so I apologize. Why do you think there's so much forbearance toward the obvious encroachment of the Chinese Communist Party in institutions of the West, both in entertainment and otherwise?
Oh, that is a big question.
Yeah, I apologize for how broad it is.
Okay. I'll tackle it from this one angle. So, the Cold War supposedly was over. We now have this, especially in Europe and a lot of think tanks, really intellectual people that, we have globalism now. We can all just work together and make money. The definition of freedom got changed to basically being, we can trade with Putin freely, no problems. Doesn't matter if, you're pitting, Detroit auto workers against Chinese slave labor. And this shift is just, it was kind of this willful delusion that it's done. We won.
Yep.
And we can
do you think another factor, and I apologize for interrupting you, but I remember one of the conservative think tanks, was it the Hoover Institution? There were a couple of economists, prominent conservative economists, who were predicting, hey, by the year 2015, China's going to be a democracy.
Oh, that was a line that's so, that was what Clinton was all about. We give, we get more by giving them the palm of our hand than the back of our hand, or whatever he said. The idea that we would change them through trade. They ended up changing us for the worse.
Absolutely. Stephen Kotkin points out, the big secret about China is behind closed doors, they're actually communist.
Yeah.
It's like, I know this is going to come as a shock, but when they call themselves the Chinese Communist Party, it means they're actually communist. I would imitate him better, but I can't do a Joe Pesci impression. But,
yeah, if we just listen to what they say.
Apparently, the same thing was true of the Soviet Union, though. We deluded ourselves on the subject of the Soviet Union. Behind closed doors, everybody expected Stalin behind closed doors was going to be like, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, I'm just in it for the power. No, behind closed doors, we opened the KGB archives, right? We've seen the private documentation behind closed doors between Stalin and his subordinates, the daily correspondence. Behind closed doors, he's still talking about the bourgeoisie. He's still talking about collectivization. He's still talking about workers of the world unite. It turns out that Russian communists were communists. Shock, amazement.
The problem is what a lot of people think is empathy is just projection. And real empathy is understanding that some people want to kill you and take your stuff.
Yep. Turns out China Uncensored is here. Guess I'm going to have to keep my stupid wiener jokes on the shorter size. Smaller than average, if you will. Now, sir, unacceptable. All right. Okay, this is a question that you hear sometimes. There's a little bit of speculation in this regard. I'm not sure I agree with it, but it is something that's out there in the ether. Filipino white boy, I've heard China is beginning to resist by buying Russian oil a little bit. Do you think the tariff threats are having an effect here?
I think I just covered today that there was some kind of deal with a Russian oil company that China had that they're reneging on. I mean, they just like to renege on deals. So, yeah, it's hard to say because people I think mistakenly think Russia and China are equals when Russia is by far more of the vassal, especially after the Ukraine war. They have such a smaller economy. The Ukraine war has drained them. They're only being supported by China. So China's the final boss.
Yep. All right. Communism is a temporary setback on the road to freedom. Razor Fist Prime. Somebody needs to mod that.
Are they going to have that on the show?
We should. Taryn, get on that. Get on that.
I doubt it. Not on modern net. Is it Netflix or Amazon Prime? It's Amazon Prime, right?
Right. Well, it would be a black robot then. Mercenary X, as a Californian, I denounced Newsom. Oh, here we go. Are you ready for a news update from the Daily Gondor? Just in at the Daily Gondor, Aragorn to reclaim Arnor in national security drive, but bringing back old Gondor threatens orc rights and Mordor built progressive order by Tharfy Bullion Bearer. We have a running gag. The dwarves in Tolkien's mythology, I don't know if you're aware, their language and a lot of their mythology is based on the Jews. Yeah. So, like in the movies, they're Scottish or whatever, but in the books, they're basically Jewish. Like their language is essentially Hebrew. I love it. We already kind of touched on this, but Razor, has it been long enough for Trump to help Iran militarily? Why the hesitation? I fear the Iranians are losing and there's not much we can do. Well, we did touch on this, and you know what? I share your concerns, and it sounds like Chris does, and if he does, I would imagine Taryn and Hobo are not far behind.
Absolutely.
Who is Hassan married to again? Xi's taint? I've never seen a marriage that close. Snerd Williams, 13% of Chinese students do 50% of the spying. Now stop it. Stop it with that statistical nonsense. Can we do a per capita on Chinese spying, please? Joel Dawson, a former National Guard colleague, alleged a classified nuclear manual went missing in 1995 Nebraska during Sergeant Walls' tenure just before he made one of his many trips to China. Seriously?
Interesting.
When Walls was in the National Guard. Huh. I've never looked into Walls' connections with China. Very few prominent Democrats don't have connections to China. Thomas Massey has set up one of those hooker buses on the other side of the aisle like the French had at Dien Bien Phu. Godspeed. Oh, no. You think Don Lemon's butt plug's getting extra use to prep for his prison sentence? Secretary of War is trimming the fat. Fitness standards are being enforced strictly. All non-hackers are being shipped out. All right. Okay. Well, Godspeed. Eagles versus Crows. Creator drama super chat. Sargon and Gamergate started it all for me. How many people did Gamergate red pill? Isn't that wild? You should have just let them play the games. It is funny too, because it's like, do you ever encounter this where you'll just be debating a leftist or something and all of a sudden they'll come out with the hysteria about Gamergate? It's like Vietnam for them. Like they're still traumatized. You ever have this, Chris? I do.
I try not to debate with leftists.
Point. Good policy. Some shambler. Where can I find information on WMD being smuggled from Iraq in 2003? Every time I look it up, the AI clarifies, aka lies to me, that weapons were captured, but insists they weren't WMD, despite it saying they could do mass harm. They were chemical warheads, so those would be the weapons of mass destruction they were looking for. So I think the issue is really with the AI's definition of WMD. And if those weren't weapons of mass destruction, I mean, I think if I remember the Colin Powell big showing before the UN, it was all about chemical warheads. It wasn't about nuclear weapons. So I think it's more of a definitional thing. But if it admits that story is true, because it was, me and Hobo covered it at the time. You remember, dude?
Oh, yeah.
October 1st, 2003. I'll still remember the date because it was just like, what the hell? What are we doing? What reality shift are we in? No one's talking about this story. But yeah, if they'll admit it, then clearly we were not hallucinating. The Tarred Saint, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Ubisoft just canceled those games, not paused. Rest in peace, Prince of Persia. Was watching that one closely. Well, I think we're about to see a Prince of Persia reboot in Iran right now, actually. So fortunately, hopefully. Stormcrow, just a reminder that the VA GOP hate their Trump voting constituents and lose on purpose to punish them. There are a lot of such cases. Gosh, I'm in Arizona, so you're preaching to the choir. Iran is still embroiled in revolution. What does both China Uncensored and the RazörForce think will be the effect if Iran is removed from the Chinese orbit by their people? That is a great question. That's a great question. I'm going to stew on that. Chris, do you have a take on what is the effect? Because I see that as being a pretty major plank in the ongoing destabilization efforts of the CCP that is kind of removed.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of speculation at this point. But one thing I would say is the Chinese Communist Party is very good at infiltration operations. Yes. And so even if there is a new government put in charge, the CCP is going to be in there trying to make good with them because they need that oil. Iran, the oil is not really an issue in Venezuela, but for Iran, they need that oil. Yeah. And yeah, they will try and make good with any government in power, and they've been very successful at it.
Or uprising and insurgent alternative parties, I noticed. Shoot, you just mentioned Venezuela. Dude, 10 seconds after Maduro was out, there was already a party that was just coincidentally in lockstep with the CCP out in the streets demonstrating, claiming to be the logical inheritors of the regime and what have you, and presenting themselves as an alternative to Maduro, even though they're not. They're lockstep with his policies, right? So this is a classic exemplar of CCP influence in local, efforts or what have you. Whenever there's a power vacuum, they're eager to fill it, in other words.
Yeah, totally.
Donald J. Polk. Godspeed. All right. Okay, this is a great question for you. I've always wanted to visit China. It's kind of a bucket list thing for me, but I have never been there. El DeGusto, Chris, what are worries I should have visiting friends in China while myself being outspoken against the CCP?
That is a good question. I mean, currently the State Department has a travel advisory that says to exercise increased caution. I think that's been downgraded a bit since before, but it's kind of an unknown risk. It could be completely fine. They're obviously not kidnapping every American that goes into China. But I mean, it wouldn't be my first choice of travel locations right now. Taiwan is lovely.
Yeah, right. You could visit the real China. Hey,
that's right.
You absolutely could.
They have a museum where they have a piece of jade that looks just like a piece of pork belly.
Oh man, what's the wildest? I love the little deep lore on communist China and North Korea. What's your favorite bit of crazy commie deep lore museum stuff? Like the I'm thinking off the top of my head of the ship. They like in the Korean War, the freaking North Koreans captured one ship and killed a bunch of US soldiers and whatever, and they still have that ship enshrined on display. They preserve the bullet holes and the blood stains. Like literally it's still there. You can go see it if you go on one of those crazy North Korean tourist things. What's your favorite bit of commie museum deep lore?
All right, have you heard of Mao's mangoes?
No.
Okay, I made a video. It was one of the first videos I ever made. So it's called Mao's Miraculous Mangoes. That was the episode name. So I forget which country it was, but they gifted Mao mangoes, which no one had seen in China up to that point.
They weren't seeing much food at the time.
It's true. So Mao, being the great benevolent man of the people he is, he sent those mangoes out to the people, and there were these parades of people holding up mangoes. Eventually the real mangoes rotted away, so they had to start using paper mache. And like you can see like all of these artifacts from this time of like people, like there's propaganda posters of like people holding up a platter of mangoes and the rays of sun behind them. You can see like special mango awards. Apparently there was one village like it got paraded to where like one guy was like, oh, they kind of look like sweet potatoes, and they executed him.
Wow.
It's insane. But yeah, look up Mao's mangoes online. You'll see all kinds of kids.
That cannot be an accident that you played Red Dead 2, right?
I actually did not.
Oh, you've got to. So the story is kind of like a takeoff on the Wild Bunch. Only the guy who's the head of the gang is kind of a proto-frontier communist.
Okay.
And his big thing is, Arthur, we're going to go to Tahiti and we're going to make millions growing mangoes. And he's obsessed with the mangoes. That cannot be an accident. He's kind of
get past the snow part.
Yeah. He's sort of running a commune on the frontier, which is wild to think about. I wonder if that's accidental. They put a lot of deep thought into that game, so I wouldn't be surprised if it was intentional.
Huh.
All right. Walker McFitness. Holy shit. Razor Fist and China Uncensored in one place. I've been blessed. Keep up the good work, everyone. Fuck communism and keep your rifle by your side. God bless everyone. And good night. Hope you're enjoying this superhero Justice League team up. Mark, a proud member of the Razor Force and 50 Cent Army. Keep up the great work, Chris and crew. By the way, any guess how long the CCP lasts? I doubt it goes 30 years. Well, I don't know. Famous last words predicting something of that magnitude.
Yeah. Well, thank you also for being a 50 Cent Army member. I'm not going to do a prediction.
No. It's silly, especially when you look at the circumstances that led to the fall of the Soviet Union and how even a few years before that, they would have been unthinkable. It happened so rapidly. Yes, it was a slow accretion of various things, various circumstances, but it kind of happened slowly and then all at once. In fact, I think that was literally a description of it in the news at the time. It was a decline that was slow and then all at once. So if China were to follow, if the CCP somehow were to collapse, it would probably look similar.
I mean, I remember hearing that I think there were Soviet economists in the 50s already being able to put together the pieces that it couldn't last. And it still lasted like decades more.
Right. Tahiti gave all their mangoes to Mao, but the plan, Arthur. Godspeed. You got to play that game now, man. Oh,
I've got it. I'll play it.
Yeah, you got to. It's good stuff. Just be ready for a real long opening chapter. Holy,
that's what I'm stuck on. Yeah.
Dude, it's not even an opening. It's a life choice. Primarch Vulcan, do you think China or Russia may start supporting the revolt in Iran through arms shipments to people to bolster their position with a possible new regime in an attempt to one-up Trump and the U.S. in the region? So 4D chess trying to get ahead of the Iranian regime falling to pieces. It is a cynical enough move that you could see China doing something like that. Do you accord with the idea that it would be likely?
I kind of don't think so. That's just really not their MO.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if it starts to look like the regime is collapsing and some kind of opposition force is on the upswing.
Yeah.
They probably would be getting meetings from CCP officials talking about all of the things they can do to help rebuild the country. That's probably more of the MO than arming this counter-revolutionary force.
Yes, and this is, I think, it's a consistent through line through all of your videos. Go check out China Uncensored if you haven't already. But people, I think there is a tendency, a predilection really, even on the right here in America, to credit the CCP with a circumspection that they do not possess. They are way more reactive than they are long-term planners. People think they've got all their pieces in a row, when really sometimes it's kind of a joker. I just do things. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of, there is a reactive element to the CCP, it being a reactionary political philosophy. They do have their plans, but this idea that they've got it all figured out and they've got it decades in advance and they're ready to go, 11 times out of 10, that's not the case. Would you agree with that? In my reading of Chinese history, whether it's the Frank Decoder series on Mao or, you know, any of the number of books on the Chinese Revolution that I've read, that's been my consistent takeaway.
Yeah, 100%. They are not the master planners that they are portrayed to be. Yeah. Just look at COVID, how they handled it.
No shit. Which there's still so much obfuscation on that subject.
Oh, yeah.
The data,
how many people died in China from COVID?
The data about the morgues in China is eye-opening.
Oh yeah.
What little of it you can even get. Dr. Admiral says, "Hey, China Uncensored, nice to see you stop by for the Razor Force, and Godspeed."
It's been a great time.
Cal, why wouldn't China just support the left as insurgents here? Have you been watching? You been listening? they have been. All right. China will try to trap Iran with a Belt and Road scam, he says. Do you credit that at all?
Well, Iran is already basically part of the Belt and Road, like the whole surveillance system. It's Chinese. They're trying to get like an internet kill switch, and I think it's Huawei that's going to help them with it. So, yeah. And if the regime topples, like I said earlier, I wouldn't be surprised if the new powers, they're offered to be part of the Belt and Road to help rebuild.
Common J, shout out to China Uncensored. You guys are awesome.
Thank you.
What's going on with the People's Pundit? I don't know. I like Richard Barris. He's a good pollster. He is definitely on board with Massey, and I think, you know, some of his recent remarks have more to do with his allegiance to Massey and Paul maybe than they do with his actual polling data. you know, you have to understand he's a pollster and he's a pundit. So sometimes you're hearing from the pundit, sometimes you're hearing from the pollster. But I still credit him with a high degree of accuracy. Be kind, please rewind. I've read a lot of Iranian Christians have been deleted in the protests. Pray for your brothers and sisters in Iran. I've been consistently praying for them. It's a horrific thing out there. I know quite a few people in Iran. I've mentioned several times. I've tried to get a hold of them throughout all of this. I have not heard one thing from them. And it's really, really terrifying stuff. Okay, but when is China Uncensored going to join you for Razor Fist Arcade? Well, the invite is open, sir. You're more than welcome. I don't know what games we could play. Hey, maybe if you get Red Dead 2 running, we could do that on multiplayer. Red Dead Online.
Oh, I'm game.
You see? We could grow mangoes, Chris.
Let's just do that. Let's grow mangoes.
We'll be mango farmers on the frontier, bro. The Loner. Do you think if Donald Trump told everyone to vote Democrat, all the Trump haters would vote Republican? Dude, we had at one point in the primaries Democrats for Nikki Haley. In fact, the Trump assassin was one of them. He was the Republican. He registered Republican to vote for Nikki Haley in the primaries, which is one of the reasons that people said that it was a MAGA supporter that shot him, when in actuality it was one of those Democrats for Haley. That's the guy who shot at Trump. Thomas Crooks or what have you. Not Alfarius. I think my favorite commie lore like that is when Stalin apparently bought an American ice cream machine and acted like it was a triumph of what communism could build. What? When was this? I haven't read that part in the Stalin biographies yet. Don't trust China Uncensored. China Uncensored is asshole. Winnie the Ping. Good to hear from him. You got some detractors. China Uncensored opens with howdy. That's how you spot a Fed. He's got you sussed, man.
I need better training.
Always love these. Razor always talks about things everyone else seems to miss. Also, hi, Taryn and Hobo. Big fan of Chris.
Hello.
Thank you.
Clinton allowed a donor to sell ICBM tech to China. Absolutely true. The 90s were basically, especially the late 90s, were basically this era where we just bent over the love seat and took it up the dumper from China. Chris, as a Californian, I denounce Newsom. Oops, I thought I already read that. I got a kick out of that Antifa dude that terrorized the churchgoers, taunted Blondie, and then she arrested his ass. Yeah, he literally said, Blondie, come down here and arrest me. And then he was arrested, and I think he wept, actually, while he was led away in handcuffs. Critical Orc Theory. Alert, Sauron, it's the return of the Shah King, with a Maganorian ghost Delta Force. I wonder if they're going to send Chuck Norris down there. Leshima, 3 business degrees. The point driven home by every professor who had firsthand experience. China cheats. Never do business with them. You will lose not just your money, but also your IPs. Have you talked much about China's violation? There's the dichotomy in China of wantonly violating American IP law, while in China rigidly enforcing IP law within the country.
Oh, I mean
I touched on that in my video about the public domain and copyright, but
like how there was like the leather bag company that took the name iPhone.
Right.
Yeah, it's I mean, there's no rule of law there. The laws are a tool the CCP uses to execute what it wants. So if you're a foreigner trying to do business, you can't function there.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear professors are saying that. I didn't realize there were professors saying those things. That's good.
Yep. Spicy Godspeed and God bless. Godspeed to you. The Azure Nightmare. Taiwan #1. Good. Eric Swalwell knows all about Chinese honeypots, doesn't he, though? All right. Godspeed. Thank you, guys. This is an epic stream, and thank you for joining us, Chris. If you, again, don't feel certainly at liberty to let us know if you need to split. Tolkien fan, congratulations on having more viewers for this stream than an episode of Starfleet Academy.
That's not hard.
Yeah, that's not a very high bar. It's down there with Susan Sarandon's tits, I think. Sea Striker, I thought they were going to bust the RICO Act on Soros and company. It has to happen like yesterday. Purchase subscriber, in the good old days, the Italians would have taken the Somalis before the cash got to the airport. We used to get screwed with more class. That was a wild part of that Somali story. Did you guys see about where they interviewed the guy at the airport who they kept coming through with briefcases filled with millions of dollars? And because they had declared it, it was fine. It wasn't involved in drug operations, so we let it through. And it was, his understanding was they would take the money to Dubai, I think. They would circuitously get there. They would go to like Atlanta, and then they would go off to somewhere in the Middle East, and then they'd go to Dubai. And then from Dubai, they would wire the money to Somalia. And this would happen 2 or 3 times in a week.
Wow.
Yeah. Crazy stuff. Mark Daly calling my shot. When my man Ron steps down as Florida governor, Trump's going to have him replace Inaction Barbie as AG. Asses will be kicked, names will be taken, and Ron becomes the Trump's heir apparent. Well, I don't know. That's quite some fan fiction. I think Ron DeSantis is looking to redeem himself in the upcoming presidential primaries. I think that's his primary focus, personally. Do any of you guys have a read on Ron DeSantis going forward?
I mean, personally, I think he's doing pretty well. Is he on his redemption arc?
He's going to have to be. If he's going to run in the primaries, he'll have to be.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, a lot of people are saying Vance. I think it's going to come down to Vance DeSantis, personally. I
what
think
about Rubio?
Rubio's going to be in the mix for sure. Rubio will be in the mix, and there's a guy who's on a redemption arc. But that's definitely your triple triad there. And then, who knows, Thomas Massey, someone like that.
It'll be a triumvirate, and then Barron will kill them all and seize the crown.
There you go! Kill them all, Father. Magnum North. Wait, the reason Jews have jewelry is because of the mines of Moria? You said it, not me. My favorite Marvel Comics anti-Semitism. Do you guys remember this freaking?
Oh, I automatically know which one you're talking about.
X-Men Blue. Yep. I think it was X-Men Blue, something like that, like the X-Men Blue Team or whatever. Like what was that guy's name?
I forget. He was Arabic. He was a Muslim.
He was a Muslim. And the artist. So it was the artist on the book. He wasn't writing the book, but he was the artist, and he wound up getting shit canned because he kept putting like Islamic propaganda and anti-Israel stuff. Because I don't know, there was some kind of protest against Israel at the time. Do you remember exactly what was going on at that time?
No, I don't remember like the actual events, but I do remember the comic panel. I've quickly tried to look it up, but
Ardian Sioff. Ardian Sioff, that was the guy's name. Okay. And he was getting pretty big. You know, he was kind of the heir apparent. They were throwing a lot of work his way because, hey, brown Islamic guy, look how woke we are, right? And then so he puts I love this panel. So Shadowcat, Kitty Pryde is Jewish, canonically. And she's having a conversation with one of the other people, and they're on a street. They're standing on a street, and I think they might even be in the Middle East. I can't remember. She's standing there, and they're talking back and forth, and there's a panel where it's just her standing there, and behind her is a jewelry store sign.
Yeah.
And her head is blocking some of the letters so it just spells Jewry. And people caught it. And Colossus had Quran verses on his shirt. It was just the weirdest shit ever. Ardiansiyov, probably the only guy Islam ever prevented from blowing up. But
if you want to take a look at it.
Yes, there we are.
There we are.
Jew!
You see it.
And that's not even the most obvious panel.
No, it is not. There was another one, a close-up. Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah. Good times.
This one here,
yep,
I
the
believe
Quran
that's
verse. What in the world?
Quran verse. Yep.
Why would Colossus have a Quran verse? Like, what did this guy think he was going to do?
It was pretty blatant.
Yeah, it's pretty blatant. I love his quote, though. I love his quote. His quote was something like, when the Jews are involved, there is no mercy. Oh, Godspeed. PDF file. These idiots are protecting PDF files, which is, it's insane how many illegal PDF files there are in Minnesota. All right. Mark Daly. So why is this guy still breathing free air? He's not. He's not. He was just arrested. Who put the bop in the Al-Shabaab? Godspeed. Deep cut there. So Trump just dragged his spray tan scrot across the collective Eurocuck face, and now we own Greenland and possibly the whole Arctic, closer than ever to a pan-American empire. Very shades of Teddy Roosevelt. The Grizzly. From the not Great Lakes states, Michigan. How do we get our states to vote Republican? Is there any hope for that region at all, or should I move to Florida? Michigan, I think the big thing is they really need to change their election laws. You need a crackdown on election fraud. Because remember, and I do believe it was Michigan in 2016, after that election, Jill Stein wanted to prove that Trump had cheated. So she crowdfunded an audit. Do you remember this, Chris?
I kind of do remember that.
Yeah. So she crowdfunded an audit after the election. And instead of finding that Trump had cheated, she found tens of thousands of votes for Hillary that had no corresponding physical ballot in Detroit. And immediately Hillary's lawyers descended on Detroit. Trump, who had opposed the audit, was suddenly like, oh, never mind. Go ahead and look to your heart's content. and Hillary was like, shut it down. And the whole audit got shut down. So Michigan is like, dude, ground zero for this kind of election fraud. Until that's addressed, I don't see there being any hope.
We need electoral college at the state level.
Thank you.
We do.
State electoral college addresses this across the board. There's a little bit of legal precedent that precludes it, but that never stopped Democrats from pushing gay marriage. That never stopped Democrats from pushing, one thing after another. This is the difference between Democrats and Republicans. When Republicans lose, they go, oh, well, we gave it our best shot. When Democrats lose, they're like, okay, we'll win next time. And they keep pushing that boulder up the hill. Republicans just have no fight, no sustained fight in them, which is infuriating. Generic name here, Shycoms have some gall throwing stones with their Belt and Road initiative. It's just loan sharking of smaller countries. Carney's just the banker in the montage from Scarface. Speaking of which, do you guys want to be infuriated for a moment?
Oh, again?
Are we not already?
I know. Actually, while I'm looking for this, why don't you go ahead and read a few of these, Taryn?
Of course. Norm Alman. What Trump said about Canada in his Davos speech is 100% correct. Canadian nationalism is premised on anti-Americanism, and it is the most dumb and ungrateful thing about Canada. And I will also read another Rumble rant.
Okay.
Grizzly Beardo. The assault on City's church in St. Paul affords us a literal come to Jesus moment in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
To all my fellow Minnesotans, how's about we come together and fellowship with them this coming Sunday?
All right. So we've been talking about the Minneapolis fraud and how that really branches out and where some of the funding comes from, where the organizing groups for these obvious distraction protests are. But just, I think it was yesterday, Nick Shirley, the guy who broke this case wide open, testified before Congress. Now, his testimony was pretty well-meaning. He just kind of stated the facts. It was pretty rote, honestly. He didn't say anything particularly controversial. It's the Democratic response to it that I want to call your guys' attention to, because this was absolutely infuriating.
World, the Judiciary Committee today will be investigating why a masked ICE agent shot 3 times in cold blood.
So Nick Shirley hasn't even testified yet. Andy Biggs, by the way, running for governor in my home state right now. He was the chairperson of the entire hearing. They throw it over to Rankin.
The ranking member of the full committee, Mr. Raskin, for his opening.
Rankin.
Thank you.
Well, Rankin. Let's actually stick with that. He is rank. These are his opening remarks. He's over $9 billion in fraud is uncovered in Minnesota. Nick Shirley hasn't even had an opportunity to explain the full extent of it. This is the pre-response. They hadn't even heard a single detail yet.
Kindly, Mr. Chairman, thank you to all of our witnesses for joining us. In a just world, the Judiciary Committee today will be investigating why a masked ICE agent shot 3 times in cold blood and killed an unarmed citizen, a 37-year-old mom, Renee Nicole Good. We'll be investigating why Trump's DOJ is harassing and investigating Renee's wife instead of investigating her killer. You'd be asking why ICE agents are trained in basic CPR, but 911 tapes have shown none of the agents performing CPR on Ms. Good. They left her bleeding alone in her car for almost 3 minutes and definitively rejected the help of a man who came forward and identified himself as a doctor.
In a perfect world, we'd be talking about all the distractions instead of the fraud we're supposed to be talking about today. It's essentially what I'm hearing here.
We'd be investigating why in another Minnesota case, ICE agents deployed tear gas under the car of a family of 8 people, including a 6-month-old, a 2-year-old, and 2 kids with severe asthma who were just trying to get home from a basketball game. The baby stopped breathing, and his mom.
Go ahead.
No. It's just it's a broad-faced lie. They
had
brought
to
their
administer
children there.
Yes.
PR as they desperately waited for medical help to arrive. But our colleagues want to talk about fraud in Minnesota, fraud that was already being investigated and prosecuted.
It was investigated a dozen or more times and nothing was done about it. Already being investigated, you clown?
Under the last administration. It is true that social services fraud, serious fraud, occurred in Minnesota. That's why under President Biden, the Department of Justice opened multiple criminal investigations that to date have already resulted in more than 90 people being charged and 64 people being convicted of federal criminal offenses. Indeed, Minnesota lawmakers acted to root out and prevent fraud going forward in the public benefits program. That's why last year, the Minnesota legislature passed legislation to empower the governor to cut off payments or to claw back funds whenever fraud is detected.
And what'd he do? If they empowered the governor, whose name is Tim Walz, by the way, and you put up for vice president, if it empowered him, why hadn't he done a single thing about it? And why, moreover, after this scandal was brought to public, did he resign? And it looks like his career's just flat out over. He initially expressed interest in running for Senate. Now he's completely out of the fight. Guys, this is the preamble. He hasn't even heard Nick Shirley give his evidence on the fraud in Minnesota. That's how much he cares about the fraud in Minnesota.
That's why Governor Walz appointed the first ever director of program integrity to make sure the state is effectively investigating and preventing fraud and corruption in their programs. The fraud in Minnesota was discovered not by a right-wing social media influencer.
Nick Shirley is a right-wing social media influencer. That's what he distills this down to.
Who's been harassing people in communities all over Minnesota in recent weeks.
You guys watched the video. At a certain point, he literally is being followed around by Somalis who are mad that their fraud has been uncovered. Which would you consider harassment? Showing up and saying, hey, I'd like to enroll Joey in daycare and being told no? Or following someone around with your car, making physical threats toward them and saying you're frightened of them because of the color of their skin, which literally happened at one point in the video. I don't know, fellas, any read on that?
It's obvious this guy's in on it. Well, not in on it. Well, maybe.
No, I know.
But,
there's no way this didn't wind up in the Democratic funding apparatus. This money, I mean.
Oh, 100%. But it's obvious that he's purposely misunderstanding the situation and just to make the kid look bad.
I don't know. I leered a lot from this.
That does sound like some pretty quality leering, honestly. Some quality leering.
Have you guys seen the meme that's going around where it's like, how is like the entire everything Democrats are doing now is just them pretending not to understand stuff?
Yes.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Totally.
They've been doing that for a while.
And this, make no mistake, the saddest part of what we're watching right now is this is the result of think tanks upon like he didn't write this. The Democratic Party wrote this for him and focus tested this for him, right? This is the best the Democratic Party could do in the realm of obfuscation after how many weeks now? 2 weeks, 3 weeks, however long it's been since this controversy came to light. This is the best they could manage. Hey, guys.
I was involved.
I wonder.
By the hard work of real local investigative journalists, brave whistleblowers, and state and federal auditors. It is this fraud, which we must take seriously, is not unlike the $2.5 billion breathtaking Medicare fraud scheme uncovered last year in the home state of the chairman of this subcommittee, as he himself mentioned.
The Medicare. Hey, what's the party of the governor in charge of the Medicare fraud? That would be Katie Hobbs, the one I was referencing earlier. He just unwittingly wafted suspicion on a member of his own party.
The massive COVID-19 unemployment assistance fraud scheme uncovered in Chairman Jordan's home state of Ohio. Fraud is endemic in government all over the world.
So therefore, we need lots and lots more of it.
There are fraudsters attacking our public institutions, trying to undermine them and rip them off. Even our president has been convicted of 34 counts of criminal fraud by a jury of his peers in New York. Related to the fraudulent payments made to porn star Stormy Daniels. And also civilly convicted in New York.
What's
Pause it for a second, yeah.
What's Stormy been up to lately, by the way? How did that wind up aging about as well as she did?
So at what point does this become just seditious? Like
a while ago. Yeah. He's straight up lying. He said in cold blood. That's the gaslighting they're going with. As if we don't have eyes, we can't just see the fucking video. Right?
Right. Cold blood is I walk up to the back of your head and I pull the trigger and there was no provocation. There was no prior interaction. There was no, even if you disagree with what the ICE agent did, there was a preamble to that, right? There was a stop, don't gun it, don't leave. Like that's not cold blood by any rational definition. But regardless, all of this is a distraction. It's a massive distraction. I think the most disgusting part of it is most of the stuff that he says we should be talking about instead is stuff that happened and was impelled by operatives in his own party in reaction to this fraud being uncovered. So the argument he's essentially making is we shouldn't focus on the source of all of these problems. We should instead focus on all the symptoms. That is, in essence, his opening argument. Guys, after 2-3 weeks, however many, this is the best the Democratic Party could manage. Chris, do you have any reaction to this, or?
I mean, I know people who say these same things.
Yeah.
I went to a Lutheran college. A lot of people are from Minnesota.
Yep. A lot of, it should be said too, a lot of the mass migration, I was talking about the ELCA Lutherans, a lot of the Somali illegal immigration and stuff, that's Lutheran charities, especially in Minnesota. It's mostly Lutheran charities. In fact, that was mentioned in the second video that Nick Shirley put out, where that guy David, he was going through, okay, how do the Somalis get there? And then they started talking about the transportation and such. And we should say a lot more fraud has been uncovered in other states, which is one of the reasons that they needed these distractions, right? We've now uncovered fraud in Washington. There was already pre-acknowledged fraud in my home state of Arizona. I think some was seen in Nebraska. It's being seen all over the place, guys. All over the place. Oregon, California, needless to say.
I can only imagine what's going on in California.
No shit. No shit. All right. Let's how about we zip over to Nick Shirley's comments and actually hear what he has to say. Finally.
Just tip that so everybody will know that as well. So, Mr. Shirley, you're recognized for your opening statement.
Awesome.
Again, look how far it is. 37 minutes until he finally gets to talk. We get this bitch in a bad weave hair talking for 20 minutes. Pure Trump derangement syndrome. If you guys want to fume a little bit more, we can watch some of her comments.
Pass.
But it's basically Raskin 1.0.
I'm here today to speak on behalf of all hardworking, law-abiding, tax-paying citizens here inside of the United States. I've helped bring to light widespread fraud that's happening inside our nation, and we the people have had enough of our hard-earned money going towards fraudsters as if it's no big deal. As I speak here, I want to ask everyone a question. How much do we trust when we pay our taxes it's going to benefit our nation?
Shit, you got a number
People
lower
erupted
than
during the
zero?
Boston Tea Party over just a few percentages as they believe they were being taxed without representation. Nowadays, we have the representation, but do we trust our representatives? My name is Nick Shirley, and I made a 41-minute video that I posted on platforms like X and YouTube. My video received over 100 million views, and it created instant change within our government.
I should say, too, that's the white pill to take here. How many people saw Nick Shirley's video? As many as he just said. Over 100 million. How many do you figure saw Raskin's rebuttal? How many people
Thanks
are
to
watching?
you, us.
I think I probably just signal boosted Raskin's video more than C-SPAN did when it originally aired. So if there's a white pill to take away from this, it's that the countervailing narrative not only is not adhering, virtually no one's hearing it. Yeah, you have the lefty wingnuts who will repeat some of these talking points because they were prefabbed and they've been making the rounds in mainstream media for a while now. But Nick Shirley's video gainsays them all. It is above and beyond in terms of visibility and persuasiveness. And this is happening more and more and more. This entire Shirley situation, as much bad has come out of it, with all the distractions and such, has been a resounding white pill for me. Do you guys have thoughts on that, or what has it been for you?
Yeah, I would definitely agree. Like, it shows that change is possible, right? If somebody actually gets out and like goes and does stuff, like this is just a regular guy pretty much, right?
Yeah.
He's nobody special and nobody knew who he was before all this went down. But now, like, everyone knows who he is.
I think the reason he's so effective is because he's so unassuming. He's literally just a guy with a camera and a freaking lapel mic. And he doesn't ask anything in a supercharged way. Like if I went out and did this kind of shit, people would be like, oh, look at that raving wingnut who's frothing at the mouth and calling these people all kinds of names. It wouldn't be quite as persuasive. But this guy is reserved and he's on point. He's on subject. Like he sticks to the point. Even in this speech here, he keeps saying it has nothing to do with race. It's just fraud.
As the federal government launched investigations and departments such as Health and Human Services froze over $185 million in child care funding until businesses can prove they are legitimate businesses. I actually became aware of the fraud that was happening in Minnesota in June of 2025 as I was there for a separate video, and Minnesotans started reaching out to me, asking me if I was making a video on the fraud. I said, well, what fraud? And this lady, she was a real estate agent, and she says, well, I'm having a hard time selling my properties because people are curious about these assisted livings that are popping up next door to some of the houses that we're buying, or the home health care clinics that are popping up, and we don't know who's next to these houses that we're trying to sell. And I said, well, I'm not gonna come and make a video if I don't have any proof. So therefore I left Minnesota. And I continued to look for fraud in the best way I could. And as I was getting my own information, a man by the name of David reached out to me and he said, hey, I have been investigating this fraud for years now. I have been...
Which this David guy is an absolute hero in all this.
Yep.
He's the guy who has all the documentation and what have you. That's the older gentleman who's in the videos, guys.
Driving by these child care centers, I've never seen a single child, and I have received the information from the state of Minnesota as to how much money these places are receiving. I said, great, let me come to Minnesota and we'll make this video about potential fraud that was taking place inside of Minnesota.
Now, all of that, everything he's just said, the way that he said it, does this strike you as right-wing YouTuber on X? Like super wing? He heard about a story that he knew would make interesting fodder for a video, and that's probably the primary draw. And he put it up and asked fairly unassuming questions of people who, if they were legitimate daycare owners, would have been able to answer it in 5 seconds. That's literally how all of this started. In fact, that's the recurrent thing. When you guys watch this, did you not notice this pattern where he'd literally say, hey, I just want to enroll my son Joey in the daycare, and they would immediately become defensive and then immediately, with follow-up questions, become angry. And this pattern repeated over and over and over again until ultimately they're chasing him down the street, following them in their cars. It was over and over and over again. Did you guys observe this pattern?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, anybody who watched the video realized the pattern immediately. Yeah. And it's kind of curious that all these different daycares, quote unquote daycares, all had each other's numbers. They all knew each other.
Isn't it wild? And that's why I was saying earlier, the Somalis in the community complaining about their businesses not being, frequented and whatever during all of these demonstrations. It's like, first off, a lot of you were involved in the demonstrations. And second, with how close-knit the Somali community is, man, it's unlikely that none of you could have blown the whistle on this. It's just wild. That was one of the recurrent things that David said, too, was that the Somali community in Minnesota is so unassimilated there and so insular. They just kind of protect one another from the oversight of any regulators or whatever. And even then, the government knew about it and didn't do a damn thing. All right. Some of the conversations I've been having with Trump detractors lately have been more like missing the forest and the trees for the turds. All right. No state governor should be meeting with any foreign leader outside of their state. Foreign affairs are a power given only to the executive branch. Newsom should be arrested. Do you see him get snubbed at Davos?
Yeah.
Showed up thinking he would get a microphone and he got nothing. Got a few photo ops.
He got to sit in the audience.
Yep. NBC claims Don Lemon charges are being dropped. I think less than being dropped, they were just told ahead of time that he wouldn't be able to be prosecuted, which If you look at what he did, he filmed the thing. He didn't organize it, I don't think. He maybe encouraged it, so you could maybe have a little bit of an argument. But Chris Chappell, here's for Matt and Shelley. There's some honeypots for you, bro.
I'll pass it on. Actually, gentlemen, I think New York time, it's probably time for me to get going.
Goodness, I didn't know you're on New York time. Thank you for joining us, sir.
It was a great time.
Folks, check out China Uncensored. What do you got cooking up, by the way? Coming up, I always watch your shit when it drops.
Oh, what do we have?
Because YouTube's certainly not going to show it to me.
I'm trying to think, but at this time of night, I honestly cannot process.
I don't blame you. Check out China Uncensored. It's always good. It's often about the CCP, and it's always worth your watch and your support. Go jump over there, drop him a honeypot emoji, and I'd love to have you back on for either an arcade or another offensive, sir. You're welcome back anytime.
Yeah, maybe we can farm mangoes in Red Dead.
Indeed. It's the plan, Arthur. Godspeed, brother. Have a good one.
Good night.
Good night.
Zhang Gunman, in my state, the Russian mob was buying ambulance companies and then defrauding Medicare and Medicaid. But if you called 911, an EMT in those ambulances would give you life-saving care and take you to an actual hospital. Interesting. Okay, Godspeed, Asher. Why can't we just ban the Democratic Party? Here we go. Because the funding apparatus behind the Democratic Party would just fund one half of the Republican Party. And if you want further proof of that, look at fully one half of the Republican Party right now. Rhinos are, I would argue, an even more caustic problem. All right. This guy, I assume he's talking about Raskin, is the tragedian from C.S. Lewis's The Great Divorce. He's acting. We know he's acting, but he can't stop. Taking Venezuela screws China in the type of oil that Venezuela pumps is bunker oil, which is perfect for ships and not a common oil. Taking it restricts Chinese Navy refueling and power projection. Did you see the latest Paul Harrell video? No, I didn't. All right. That comic panel also has the number 212 on another store, a reference to Islamic protest marches against the Christian prime minister that had been elected in Siaf's home country of Indonesia. That's right. That's what it was about. It was about the Indonesia stuff. Remember unsolicited opinions about Israel? Yeah, that's pretty much the entire internet at this point. I'll never forget the spurg out my professor had when I dared to criticize communism in one of my Chinese history lectures. Her face went bright red, along with her politics. Shitlib friend thinks I'm a leftist, wants me to go to Antifa meetings. Should I infiltrate? Bring a camera.
Don't get caught, though.
Right. Do not redeem DeSantis. No! I worked for a company that made construction equipment. They outsourced to China. That factory started making their own copies and didn't even change the logo, just the name, didn't even deny it. Wow, dude. Hail RazörForce. Razor, have you seen any clips from Starfleet Academy? I've been watching Disparu's reviews, and it's hilarious. I love Starfleet Academy, the PC game series from the 90s. I don't know about you, but
yes. It's Shatner.
Yes, even the SNES version is pretty good, to be honest. No, I haven't. I mean, the thing that's funniest about Starfleet Academy is it's basically the premise is Star Trek High School. And that was a joke premise in an episode of the Hidden Camera show, the Jamie Kennedy Experiment in like 2004, where they went behind the scenes at like the writer's room on Star Trek Enterprise, if I remember correctly. And they were going to pitch a new Star Trek show. And the idea was we're going to pitch something so bad, we're going to get the writers to tell, I forget if it was Rick Berman or Brandon Braga or who it was, that he's wrong, right? We'll see how long they say that he's right because he's their boss and how uncomfortable it makes them. And so this guy's pitching Star Trek High School. It'll be great. We'll have teen drama. We'll have dating. We'll have them talking about screwing in the freaking lock. We've now literally got that. It was a joke premise on a TV show, and now it's literally real.
And apparently, like everyone, I watched a couple clips of it, and I swear, dude, like everyone is a freaking space lesbian in there. Everyone, 100% of Starfleet is now space lesbians. I'm like, okay, I could see if it was a couple percent, but really 100%?
Not only that, but do you remember, I don't know if you watched the special features on the TNG stuff, but Gene Roddenberry, when he was pitching TNG, was like, one of his big notes was, nobody can be overweight. Because in the future, everyone's got access to good exercise, good nutrition, whatever. Everyone has reached their peak physical perfection if they possibly can. That's why everyone in the cast had to stay on their diet because they had these super form-fitting uniforms and all of that. Dude, it was a dictum laid out by Gene Roddenberry. No one can be fat. Fast forward to freaking 2026. There's obese Klingon bitches. And like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Shameful.
You want to read that, Taryn?
Absolutely. Red Pill Prof. Please take the Rothbardian lolberts who follow Scott Horton down a peg. Dave Smith is a Horton lapdog. They think China would be peaceful if not for the U.S. aggression. Defined as U.S. does things.
Man, I wish Chris was still here. I wish we had read this while he was still here. Because he's done video after video on why that's not the case. Go check out his channel, guys. I've said it enough, but if you don't watch China Uncensored, you've got to. Go watch his videos. He's talked about exactly, this is a long-term strategy by China, and it existed in the 90s when we were kissing cousins with the Chinese, so why the hell wouldn't it exist now when Trump is finally acknowledging that China are openly aggressive to us, and that essentially we are in a new Cold War that only one side has deigned to acknowledge. It's just silly. But this is there anything that lolberts are weaker on than foreign policy? You know, Ron Paul, God love him, but every time he talked in the 2012 midterms and whatever, he sounded like an absolute rubber cement swilling dolt. The Greenland New Deal, it's going to be great. Godspeed. Hobo, you want to read that?
Yeah, Normal Man. The Euro Chucks trying to make Macron look cool is funny. The dude pulled a Biden and wore aviators for his speech.
He said it was an eye condition. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
A black eye condition.
No shit. No shit. All right. Can a matchbox? No, but a tin can. Go to your room. Don Lemon going to prison will be like Disneyland for that and what, right? He's like taking prep and doing enemas. Oh no, don't send me to prison. Don't. Whatever you do. Isn't it better for Donnell to be free? He's always wrong and made so many stupid moves. He destroys everything he touches. Why get rid of a good thing? Not only that, but he's definitely on the downward trajectory, right? He went from having a primetime show on CNN to being a not even middling successful social media figure. I mean, I have posts with more impressions than Don Lemon's. Belvien, after our dominating Venezuela, does anybody feel that Pete Hegseth listens to Sabaton and just and the lyrics of Stormtroopers? LOL. I hope so. It's nice to think someone in the Trump administration would be a Sabaton fan, isn't it?
I'm hoping JD Vance.
Hey, they pardoned John Schaefer, right? Cameron, they're gonna get Don Lemon on the
KKK Act.
KKK Act, because they have him on tape saying to conspire to disrupt the church service, which is illegal under the Klan Act of 1871. Really, is KKK a censored term on YouTube? Of course it is.
I'm willing to bet it is.
Christianity's greatness weakness was creating too good of a civilization, right? Intrinsic Dark Promethean Action is a great channel too. They talk about the British undermining America as well as other bad actors. That is a part of communist history that is not discussed enough. I just barely touched on it in my Hollywood Was Always Red video, but most of the upper leadership of the Communist Party, especially on the West Coast, in America at the time of the House Un-American Activities Committee hearings and the early days of McCarthy, contrary to the people looking for hooked noses around every corner, was British. Like Ella Winters was the head of the Hollywood Communist Party, and she was a British emigre, actually. It's a recurrent thing, and it was because, well, there's a long-winded, circuitous way that it came about, but basically the country of Great Britain was they cucked to socialist strikes, especially during World War I and a few other military conflicts prior to that. And so they were embedded in the British government, and unions had a unique amount of power in Britain. And so they came over to America and corrupted our industries and our political institutions. Richard Slammer, we're going to see Guns N' Roses album Chinese Democracy before we see Democracy in China. You can use that joke either way. Well,
Good
not
album.
really, because Chinese Democracy is out. What do you think of that album, Hobo?
Dude, I actually like it. I mean,
There are some okay songs on it, actually.
Yeah, the whole joke was it took forever for it to come out, I guess. But compared to when you hear the same like Paradise City and Welcome to the Jungle, like I don't ever have to hear those songs again. They're played so often. But Chinese Democracy is like refreshing after that, honestly.
Hey, can I heal Sweet Child of Mine for the 100,000th time, please? Walker McFitness. Okay, off the wall opinion here. As soon as Ukraine wraps up, Russia doesn't go pro-West, but anti-China enough to hedge bets using Western aid to rebuild. They hate us, but they really hate the Chinese. That is an interesting. They are very much allies of convenience and exigency. The new guy, was Chernobyl a reason the USSR fell when it did? I would say it was more indicia that they were destined to fall. Really. Okay, here we go. Crocodile, I think my $10 super chat got skipped because YouTube is dumb. Well, we've been jumping around a little bit, so it may have been read by now. Based Candlemass shirt, yes, sir. Godspeed, one of the best doom metal bands ever. All right, guys, here we go. Vault 5 Dweller, extended or theatrical Lord of the Rings, and favorite character. For me, it's extended. I do like the theatrical, though. There's nothing wrong with it. It's good for like when you're introducing people to the trilogy. I recommend you show them the theatrical cuts instead. But favorite character, Gimli. Gimli, all day long. Hobo?
Yeah, I would definitely say extended, but theatrical to get for newbies because that's long enough. It's already 3 hours, right? Like, so,
right.
I would say maybe Boromir for favorite character.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. What about you, Taryn?
Extended all the way. And I'd have to say Aragorn.
Oh, hell. Now get it right. It's Strider.
Strider, sorry.
Round these parts, he's known as Strider. Reaper Grimm, honestly, my friends and I voted for Trump because we thought it was the funniest possible way to vote for our first time in a presidential election. Many such cases. Can you own any type of firearm in China? Not so much. If a stork brings white babies and a raven brings black babies, what kind of a bird brings no babies? A swallow. Well played. Somali daycare centers. I guess USAID money laundering center and bait shop was a little too on the nose. So that's the dried up funding. The woke farmer veteran is it? Sounds like a bad Indiana Jones or Bond antagonist. You want to read that, Taryn?
Certainly. Winds Boreas. When Dad was in elementary school, they had Howdy Day, where kids would dress in cowboy garb and bring actual revolvers, sans projectiles.
How were you born and raised in Arizona, Hobo?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Raised in Phoenix, just like you.
So you might remember, because I know your family's not originally from Arizona, but you might remember that downtown we used to have Western days, right?
Yeah.
You would have like a rodeo down in downtown Phoenix, and everybody'd be cooking steak and burgers and refried beans. And there'd be, hay rides and all kinds of stuff. Everybody'd be dressed in cowboy regalia, open carrying on the street. And that shit doesn't happen anymore. There's way too many Californians. But back when Arizona was still Arizona, We used to actually celebrate our history. And yeah, that's not we didn't call it Howdy Day. It was just called Western Days.
My dad would talk about like how if you're driving north on like I-17, there used to be cows on the side of the road. Like,
I mean, in my neighborhood, and it's in the middle of the city, there's still horses and shit. There's still you'll run into a farm here and there, right in the middle of a suburb. You know, just a farm, horses, goats, cows, and stuff. And it just shows you how quick urban sprawl caught up to these people. Most of that happened in the 90s.
It used to be open range. I remember just driving up to Lake Pleasant, and you just have cows like in the road.
Yeah,
like you don't see it anymore. For sure.
Well, you know, it sprawl happens so fast. Sometimes, like in North Phoenix, dude, you'll be over at like ASU West. On the ASU West campus, they got coyotes living on that campus still.
Yeah.
Because the city built out so fast. There's still families of coyotes just roving around.
I've seen some coyotes in my parents' neighborhood right in the middle of town.
Totally. All right. Super chat's being dumb because I refuse to verify it. This goes through. What Bible verse is good to start a wedding speech? Little sis is getting hitched soon. And I haven't even started yet. Ooh. Man, I don't know. How about I look that up while Taryn reads another one?
Major Spike 9000. For one of my courses at film school, we actually had to watch the documentary, read propaganda, Acorn and the Firestorm. It's wild to see the same James using the same bag of tricks even back then.
Oh God, good one. I should have said this. Proverbs 18 is like the ultimate marriage chapter. Proverbs 18:22. He who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains the favor of the Lord. I remembered this verse, but didn't remember what it was. Proverbs has great verses on marriage. All right. Godspeed. Thank you. I can't believe they showed a documentary on that. Did you know despite being 13% of China's population, Hainan province accounts for 50% of all manhole cover thefts? Really? As a Virginian, we need an audit sus in 2020. A lot of places were sus in 2020. I want to thank Mr. Chappell for showing me just how slimy, cruel, and horrifyingly awful China is, Metalhead Gangster. We would love to have him back on. A question for China Uncensored. What's Tibet's future as of now? I'm sorry, he's already taken off, but feel free to hit him up on China Uncensored or hit up his social media at China Uncensored, and I'm sure he'll hit you back on that one. My fave commie lore is Trotsky's refusal to tip. So one time a waitress spilled hot soup on him. Dude, is that not the most Trotsky thing you've ever heard of? All right. Teddy was right. The grizzly is the real U.S. symbol. Not sure if you remember, said last year in a live stream I was going to sue my school, and a professor can happily report lawsuits have been filed and they're panicking. It's hysterical. Godspeed and good luck. Star Trek is written by people who don't even like it. Hobo, go.
Well, man, like I don't even know who like currently is writing this stuff. Hasn't it been like still that guy? He's been doing it since Star Trek 2009. But yeah, like okay, so there's some Star Trek fan films out there which are way. You compare those to like what's coming out now, and
dude,
way more in the spirit of like classic Star Trek.
And some of them have actual Trek actors in them.
Yeah,
it's crazy. Yeah, absolutely disgusting what's happening with Star Trek. And speaking of Star Trek, Hobo joined myself and Taryn for a season finale for season 5 of The Depths of DS9, the classic Dominion War episode, Call to Arms. We're fighting copyright on it, but it'll be up whenever YouTube decides that the law is the law. But yeah, it's up. It's just not up. Right? So be looking forward and looking out for that one. Not Alfarius, Gene Roddenberry also said humanity in Star Trek is a lot smarter on average, like Einstein level. He said there were maybe 2 people on Earth today who could graduate from Starfleet Academy. Terran appreciation post, appreciate Terran. And look at this, back to back, honorable Razor Fist appreciation post as well. Well, thank you. And thank you to our guest once again, China Uncensored. Thank you to the Razor Force. This one went a little long, but I think it was worth it, folks. Until next time, for Tactical Hobo and Terran Gel, don't get captured and God speed.